One.
All of the wondrous disasters that could possibly go wrong on the stream will go wrong.
Yeah. Well, you know, we'll see. But
you love the news, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, my God, it's been quite a week. I mean, yeah.
That is the fun part, I guess, about all of this is that this is really just a. That's the show. Is every week now it's going to be like, oh wow, there's actually shit to cover. Things are actually happening.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, the president's in the news again. It's like, wow, honey, we haven't had that for 4 years. What are we gonna do now? And it's just like, well, shit. Now we got to talk about it, I guess.
It's like Trump won. Every day was a different. You know what I mean?
So true.
Every week was like a new. He would tweet something, and it'd be over. Whatever people thought, whatever people cared about, like literally the day before Trump tweeted something different, people just ceased to care about it. And then it just became about that. Daniel Penny hired by Horowitz and Dreesen. Oh,
I did see that, yeah.
What job could they give him? He's not a tech bro.
I don't know. I think it's just a reward at this point. I'm pretty sure JD Vance had a big part about that.
He's probably just going to be like an honorary security guard or something. He'll be like a symbol. Like he'll have a sash.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll go around the building with all the coding monkeys.
He can have the Family Guy King of the Black People sash.
Yeah. He's going to make sure that like they're not going to like, you know, raid the snack bar too hard. You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure you think
compliance officer Daniel Penny.
You think like the Palantir offices have like a cereal, like a millennial cereal bar, or do they have something more manly, like they got the steak and eggs, like the steak and like free revolver and steak bar, you know, or like
I'll never know.
Oh, we'll never know because
we'll never know.
Of course, this show is 100% sponsored by viewers like you. So please sneed those super chats because we are not a part of certain networks. We are totally independent and we love our viewers. But although I think we will get more sponsors, and like I know, Prude, you have the Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, the Alp pouch thing, the alp.com/Prude for those interested. I mean, I would prefer to sponsor and I've said it on a community post before. I would much rather sponsor artwork and books by our guys. And although I have to say, there is another, our friends over at the Sidebar, Tukey's Mag, and the rest of them, they did a great sort of political compass stream about.
Yeah, I watched that.
It was a really great stream. Well, it was a great video. I mean, it was a stream though. Doing a political compass test for all of the like niche independent book publishers, you know, from like Dirtbag Left to Chud to Esoteric to Normie. And there's a lot more than I initially realized. And now there's one more because our friends Matt Pegas and Dan Baltic have a new publishing company out.
From the ashes of Terror House Magazine.
True. It's now New Ritual Press. So if for those interested, you now have another NRP to look forward to.
And apparently Passage is publishing a book, like a fiction book by
Rambo Van Halen.
Yeah, he doesn't follow me, but what's it called?
I have no idea. I think it was like Hollywood something.
Yeah, Rambo Van Halen. Is it a fiction work?
I have no idea. I'll have to look into it.
I think it is, actually. I think it is. But is the Murdoch murder? Yes. Don't, Shawnee.
Don't do it to yourself.
Don't look. Please, just ignore that account.
Don't do it to yourself.
I will say though, I love hearing Spangler again. That's that voice is so angelic when she gets angry.
No my.
I can't help it. Oh. I like older women. Did you know I like older women?
Do you want me to talk about what I know, or do you want me to just like move on to the next topic we're going to discuss?
Let's move on. Spangler! All right, so
Gio is the ultimate hagmaxer. That's all I can say.
Oh my god. Anyways, so I know you people are gonna make us talk about what's the recent news, but
there's so much recent news.
So
we
much.
could talk about anything, or talk about nothing. That's my favorite part of the show. We don't talk about anything.
Yeah, true. It's a show about nothing.
Well, we're not Seinfeld. We're not that soulless. I wouldn't go that far. It feels almost insulting.
Oh my god. Do you remember the first season of Seinfeld where Jerry's apartment was like a rundown apartment? Then his apartment got like markedly better because the show is like, oh, I guess we realized like upper middle class people watch this show. And so they're like, okay, let's have like a better apartment in New York. Because I think that's what Jerry Seinfeld said when he was on Howard Stern. He said, the only reason we survived the first 2 seasons was because rich people watched our show. That's the only reason why. Then it became such a mass cultural it was only until like season 3 that it became like a mass cultural phenomenon. But he said like that's the only reason, because back in the day it really like who watched your show was more important than how many people watched your show because of ad revenue, which I think is probably true in the internet even. Like for example, if like no one, you know what I mean, like
well there's a reason why the bigger YouTubers or certain accounts have the paid sponsorship, and also like these people really don't care because there's just buku bucks to throw around. Like I'm always blown away when there's like a War Thunder sponsorship or any one of those like shitty VPN services or whatever, and it's just like they have money for days to just throw around at these people. But I mean, I guess it works. I guess they get clicks. I don't know what the average person does. It's very rarely am I swayed by advertising.
Yeah.
Although I'm swayed by food advertising, and I will admit I will admit this.
I went out to get the Austin Matthews Poppy Burger at McDonald's. I'm ashamed to admit that's how much of a Leafs fan
I think it was literally it was leading up to the Super Bowl last year, and a friend of mine had a game night at his place, Hollywood Sosmodot. There you go. Thank you, Shawnee Mac. So we were having a game night at my buddy's place, and on the TV it played this advertisement for a honey glazed pepperoni pizza from I think it was Pizza Hut, and I was like, "Wow, this is like the first time I actually acknowledged it. And I felt bad even as I ordered the damn thing for my friends. I was like, "Wow, this is the first time I've ever been swayed by advertisement for food in a long time." And I was like, I had this weird moment where I was like, oh man, maybe I'm losing my resistance to advertisements or whatnot, because I just feel disgusting for eating this like honey glazed pizza from Pizza Hut. And it was absolutely, yeah, I'm not going to lie. You know what? It was good. It was delicious. I had a great time with it. That is a memorable food memory for me.
Do you know the TikTok and YouTube shorts, that pizza place in New York called Crispy's?
Nope.
They're really
TikTok. I don't watch YouTube Shorts. I'm not on Instagram. Literally, unless it's for YouTube purposes or on X, I have no social media, and I'm not on them outside of being the Prudentialist. And it is
they have like a famous honey glazed, like with the rivet pepperoni. They got a famous like honey glaze, but the guy's like a pure Sicilian Italian, and he like really hems it up. But so Pizza Hut has a honey glazed.
I guess they did. I think it was a limited run thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, food advertising works, but there's rumors that McDavid's gonna go to Toronto. But anyways, never mind. They had in Canada they have the Connor McDavid Big Mac, and in the Austin Matthews Quarter Pounder. And I'm like, I have to get the Austin Matthews Quarter.
So Canadian McDonald's had very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a rumor that Connor McDavid's good. I don't know how the Maple Leafs could find the cap space to buy Connor McDavid. I don't know how that's gonna happen. Go straight for the Matthew Nyes fries. I love Matthew Nyes. Matthew Nyes, if he can hit more, if he gets into more fights, that kid could be like the next Darcy Tucker. Like he's scrappy, he can score goals, he can hit. Kid's got everything. I love Matthew Nyes. He's like my favorite Leaf right now. But he does remind me of Darcy Tucker. But anyways, this is episode 117. And we have a very special episode, although it was kind of short notice, although I don't think he would really come on the show. But we're reviewing the Dean Kissick article that caused a huge ton of waves in the professional art world. And Dean Kissick's an art critic I've been reading for a number of years now. And I think he truly is one of the last great art critics, along with Adam Lehrer and along with, I wouldn't put Tai E in that, because I think film review is a different genre. I think the only two real honest film reviewers left in this planet is Kino Corner and Tai E from Soiled Cinema. That's the only two. And Sunwound, of course, my good friend Sunwound, who maybe will come on the show one day. If he can find a decent internet connection in Egypt. I don't know if he could do that. I mean, I'm sure they got something they probably got internet cafes in Cairo now. But anyways, Entropy is linked there down below and also in the pinned comments. And Sneed those super chats. Again, we are not funded by Palantir. And we're not getting, well, I guess Prude's getting a check cut by Tucker Carlson, but we are not sponsored, except for
no check is cleared yet, so no.
Yeah. So we're not funded by any network, and we are totally independent. And even though we have, I think maybe one day we probably will do merch with White Boy Summer Apparel. I wanted
that ship has sailed, sir.
Why? What happened?
Did you not see them doing the whole, like, every week they had, or every day during December they had a Twitter space with guests, including Yarvin, because they were shutting down.
They're shutting down?
Yeah, they're not doing merch anymore.
Why not?
Because I don't know why they said that they were closing down. This was like 6 months ago, man.
Oh my god. I'm sure there's probably another merch thing we could do.
I'm sure, but I mean, there's always, until then, you have your Digital Archipelago shirts over on my Teespring account.
We never advertise those.
I never do. And then I'm always surprised when someone messages me and they're like, "Hey, Prude, I bought a shirt or a mug." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot I have these things."
That reminds me. If you go to my Patreon, if you subscribe at the $20 tier, Patreon will give you a giant Geo mug with my... I could probably do a mug with this picture, too. But I wanted, again, I have to see like what we can do with merchandise. But it's too bad about like White Boy Summer Apparel. It's hard, man. That's why Terror House folded, because it's really hard to do anything.
Well, it's hard. It's not only hard and expensive to do anything, but also like you are in. And this is a point that Dave has made for like, I want to say 5 years at this point. We're all trying to eat the same. We're all trying to get the same crumbs off of the same. Yeah. Upper to middle income pie.
Exactly.
We're all fighting for the same patrons. We're all fighting for the same dollary dues that everyone else is. And I think Dave is actually going live today as well. So, like, thanks, Dave, for ruining our regularly scheduled events. But I respect you, so it's fine. But, like, at the same time, it's just, okay, well, now you have to acquire a better class of patronage network. And I think that's why the future of anything that people are going to do, I think it's going to be doing stuff live in the future.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the Fumate Gallery works out with what I'm doing with me and Alexander Adams. But
are you actually going to be there in person?
Someday.
Okay.
Maybe. I'm thinking about it. Like, I'd have to drive to New York.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure?
Oh my god, I
remember inviting you to things, Gio.
I love the new banner photo. I love it.
As soon as I think you would put that out on the Telegram saying like, "Hey, we're gonna do this," the comments were just excoriating. They were just like, Nag was just like, "You sold out. You're soulless. It's completely ruined. It's over." There were comments ironic. Before we went live saying this was coal. It's over. Yeah,
it's postmodern. It's ironic.
It's ironic, but I feel like irony is dead.
Yeah, well, we got to bring it back.
I don't know.
You can't really bring something like irony back. It has to have its moment.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but it's gonna. Don't worry. Like it's ironic, and I like how it turned out. And I think that'll be the banner going forward. But we'll see what happens. So in the news, I I kind of don't want to. I kind of don't want to talk about the tariffs because me and Fortisex did like 3 hours.
Okay, well, that'll be fun to listen to.
Yeah, it's really great. But we didn't talk about that. Like we only talked a little bit about it at the end. It was more about Canadian history and Canadian identity. But the tariffs crisis averted at least for a month. But honestly, I think Trump just did it as a scare tactic. And I kind of...
It's like he did it with Mexico. He did it in his first administration to get concessions. I think the most disappointing thing about all of this is that it reaffirms this little cycle I've noticed in sort of international politics, is that whenever a Republican is in office, the hating Red America becomes the default norm for most Europeans.
Yeah, and Canadians.
And Canadians by extension, which is fine. I find it funny that like rallying around the flag, like the blood and soil bit, is just screaming that I'm not America, I'm not America, I'm not America. When I know that there's more to Canadian identity than that, but it's so pathetic for a lot of just like Canadian libs that that's the case. That like we're not you and we're better than you. And it's just like, okay, like if that's how you want to define yourself, I feel like it's a very vapid and empty existence in comparison to those that actually appreciate Canadian history, literature, art, and the great cavalcade of heroes and fighters that come from the Great White North. But nevertheless, here we are, and it's incredibly frustrating because, you know, we're taking all the products off the shelves, and I'm like, cool, but where's your like deport them all now sentiment? You know?
Yeah,
I would much prefer to see that.
Well, that's what me and Fortisax and others like Black Horse, that's what we were talking about, how these same libs that were literally calling the red ensign racist or a hate symbol because of like certain trolls or whatever, these same people were like now posting old posters from the 18th and 19th century, these old like British Commonwealth Canadian posters, and it's just really incredible. I can't, like, I have no words for it. Like the amount of hypocrisy is astounding, but I think that'll like, and this is what Fortisex say, like that'll easily peter out. Like that's not going anywhere. But I would think like a more sophisticated rightward American skeptical position that isn't exactly like Duganite third worldism, that I think will actually survive and will actually be meaningful in Canada. But I think this issue is going to go away. I think in a month's time, the news cycle will change and Trump will declare victory and say he more or less got what he wanted from Canada and Mexico. And I think if Poilievre does manage to withstand Mark Carney getting elected the leader of the Liberals, I think Poilievre will probably be in a prime position to do things like restart the Keystone Pipeline. And also another thing that Fortisex brought to my attention was Poilievre, the one, like, you know, as much as I criticize him, the one good thing he said recently was that the Conservative Party wants to get rid of intra-trade barriers within Canada, specifically the dairy board, the wheat board, the cross-provincial taxes, things that like just don't make any sense in terms of facilitating Canadian economic growth. And it's because there's a lot of people, let's face it, a lot of these boards were attached to the Liberal Party that essentially was like a giant economic grift to scam a lot of producers in Canada. And it just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, even in America, you don't really have that like labyrinthine cross state lines trade policy, like from what I understand. It's just, yeah, so the Canadian economy has been incredibly mismanaged. And instead of like libtards being like, okay, we kind of are responsible for this, we should do better. Instead, their response is the typical like rah, hate America, which, I mean, you know, there's many things to criticize America on, obviously. But I think like that form of negative patriotism or patriotism via negativa, that's just not going to last. And like the whole thing, like booing American teams at hockey games and Raptors games, like it's just kind of stupid.
I mean, that sort of thing has happened all the time. I mean, I'm not really surprised with the game stuff. But I mean, I think that, again, it's the same question that everyone talks about when it comes to identity in general, whether it's in America or being right-wing, is that you can only exist via negativa for so long. I mean, it works great if you're not in control. It works great if you're not in charge. And so for, I think, the American right, at least, you have to answer the question of like, well, okay, if you're in this sort of moment of ascendancy and people are retweeting your ideas or whatever, like, fine, I think it's a minor thing, but you have to ask yourself the question, well, what can you make? What are you capable of producing that says this is distinct from what's come before, or we're this, and we don't have to define ourselves by our opposition. The opposition can do whatever they want. And I think it's a bit sad in some ways where it's just like, okay, well, we're going to impotently rage online. Exactly. I saw that too with Remnant Hearts. There was that tweet saying like we should protest with a Canadian flag and take it back from the truckers. You saw this too with all those federal bureaucrats and like the subreddit Fed Fed News or whatever. God, it's so funny to watch. And they were like, well, we should protest more with the American flag. And they're like, we need to take this away from Trump and the base and all that. And then like you read the comments and it just breaks it down to like really just progressive race realism, where the progs are like, yeah, but like we're all inclusive, or we're not all white, and da 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 da. And you're just like, oh man, like all these like white liberal upper middle class bureaucrats that live in Nova are just like, oh shit. We've basically thrown away the American identity, and now we're clinging to the Constitution because Trump is in office again. And it's just like, no one believed you the first time.
Here's a good one, Prude. Here's a good one.
You know, the libs are quoting the Bible. Like, although, okay, I will say this, SW. They tried that a lot, actually, at the DNC last summer. Where the Democrat Party was trying really hard to be like, we're the real Christians, we're the real ones. And you had this huge push in the election, too, with the whole non-Christians funding that whole He Gets Us thing, the whole Love Thy Neighbor bit. And it was just like, funny how
even that
works.
Recent bishop, quote unquote.
Don't. Our friend Ambrose Pierce. They even quote the.
Oh my god!
But even our friend Ham had said, all these white female clerics are really putting a new definition to white collar crime. And I thought that was tastefully done.
Someone said the USAID was essentially just white collar welfare, which I thought was hilarious.
I mean, it's funded. It funds a lot of foreign media. And in fact, it funds a good chunk of the BBC. I learned today, which I thought was wild.
Apparently, this is what Peter Nemitz said. This is I'm so glad. I'm so happy at this. Apparently, the Kyiv Independent and the Bellingcat are both getting shafted at the closure of USAID. Thank God. The most hideous ghouls on the planet.
Well, and apparently the University of British Columbia received quite a few $1 million from USAID.
UBC received millions from USAID.
So according, I'm just looking this up here. He says from Laura Love, Panacht Economy on Twitter, 22,000 followers. Criminologist and investigator, academic with a big heart. Anyways, she had done this thread and it had said, who would have known that many Canadian universities are receiving USAID money? This will be an interesting line of inquiry. You betcha. I have some partnering on research to get IP and licensing with Chinese government-connected firms. We already know the story at UBC and UWaterloo and their partnerships with Western University at their massive Chinese student program paid directly as administration as scholarships to the school. And so she was just doing all this. And so, for instance, UBC, if I'm reading that correctly, $1,094,248,912 for that year through the EIN numbers that are registered. However, this isn't just via USAID. This is also various other questions. And I think that it's important that USAID goes away. And one, because all your fake opposition parties that are like my heckin' trans heart progressivism, those are going to fade away.
In Poland,
or a lot like in Poland.
Yeah, I think Victor Tusk even took USAID money.
I mean, there's that, but also like the media stuff, like the BBC gets a good chunk of funding there too.
Yeah.
And so a lot of progressive, like, are there some good things that probably come out of USAID? Maybe.
Probably.
I mean, you'd have to do a full accounting of it. I think that's what all these like autistic data nerds are doing, which good for them. So, I mean, it is good to see it go away for a little bit, because if the leverage of American quote unquote imperialism has been to just more or less gayify everything, seeing a reduction of that from the spigot of money is a good thing. And I think that in the long run, that'll hopefully be something to appreciate.
Yeah. Well, it's something that my good friend Goran, GSP at the War Report, said, and that actually reminds me, if all of you can keep GSP in your prayers, a very close family member of his is having a tough time medically. So if you could keep GSP and the War Report in your prayers, that would be nice. But there's something that he said where you have a lot of NGOs, like you have these whole apparatuses in places like Iran and South Africa and in Ukraine and in any sort of Belarus, any corner of the globe that you can think of that is quote unquote hostile to American, or rather hostile to quote unquote Western interests, which somehow never managed to correlate to the average Westerner's interests, by the way. That you basically have whole armies of NGOs. A lot of these people that run them are educated in the West. Their sole purpose is to just create misinformation on the ground that then gets funded to media sources, also being funded by USAID, like the BBC. So a lot of these resources are drying up. Now, could you say that when it comes to USAID, like there's some legitimate things that they fund in the third world? Yes. I mean, you can question the effectiveness of that. For example, with food aid, I mean, people have been critical of food aid for decades now. But when it comes to like the nuts and bolts of it, when you look at the structure of what it's actually funding and what these data nerds are revealing, it's actually quite shocking. And the fact that someone like the Bellingcat, who is essentially just a Fed operation, we all know this.
It's just professional Antifa.
It's professional Antifa run by people that used to be in the intelligence agencies. And those, I mean, even I could imagine Antifa networks are really screaming as well, because their funding is going to get cut. So, I mean, the fact that like Wired magazine doxed these young achievers, not all of them are white, by the way. These like young guys are working in the Trump institution that are going to audit programs like USAID that are working for DOGE. Wired magazine recently doxed them. So you could tell like right off the bat, they're panicking. But what's going to be very interesting is that apart from the personal safety issues, which by the way are very real, especially if you live in blue states, especially if you live in Antifa strongholds. But apart from that, I don't think these kids are going to get fired. I don't think these kids are going to get let go. And so what's going to happen when Wired magazine or the BBC or all of these other people that are going after Elon Musk and Doge, what's going to happen when you dox them, these young guys that are, you know, auditing all of these federal programs, but nothing happens? Like literally nothing happens. They continue to do their job under Elon and Trump. It's you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm critical of Elon Musk for various things as well. I'm not like one of these, I'm not like Ian Chungus, you know, where I think I'm going to be a court vizier one day. But I do think that it's a good sign that, like, you know, especially these young men are getting these positions where they can use their brain power for good. And it's just, I've seen the rhetoric of it's just absolutely insane. Like all of the talking points.
Normie sadist is back on the menu.
Yeah. But like all the talking points, if you've ever been a part of like, say, even like a tacit understanding of the conspiracy movement in America, and if you've like really followed it throughout the years, a lot of their rhetoric is just basically going into like a left liberal version of it now. Like the way that like even Democrat politicians are talking about DOGE, they're an unelected bureaucrat body. They're a secret government. It's like, that's like Alex Jones in like 2009 Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, saying they're going to have star chambers like they have in the UK. They're going to have a continuity of government. Like, it's literally like, it's the same rhetoric as conspiracy theory on the political right, or the libertarian, you know, the old libertarian days. And like, yeah, Project 2025 is one of them, Bell Phosphorus. Like the way they talk about it, it's incredible. And oh my God, like yeah. So I mean, it's just been, the rhetoric's been insane. But I am happy that all these people are getting cut. I mean, the gravy train's over. I mean, hopefully Trump can keep to his word. But I know people want us to talk. I don't know, Prue, do you want to talk about the?
Well, you don't really have a choice now, do you?
Yeah, I know people want us to talk about the Israel thing. I don't know. Like, I mean, you go ahead, Prue. You go ahead, Prue.
Oh, well, thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're
fine. I think you people know what I think. I don't have to say it. I mean, I think that if you go out of your way to smash people and displace them and then, build a resort on top of their graves, I think that's obviously a bad thing. But if they could facilitate a sort of peace agreement, that's another thing. But we all know that's not going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we'll see what happens. Of course, there's going to be a huge migrant crisis in Gaza, obviously. If the actions of U.S. occupation could somehow avert that, then that would be good. But I know it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. So without saying too much, without saying my real opinion, I'm very skeptical of any U.S. involvement in Gaza. I'll just leave it at that. That's my opinion. You could probably intuit what else I could say if I wasn't on YouTube, but I don't think it's a good move. I just don't think it's a very optical move in my opinion. But
I'm skeptical until any sort of positive results are delivered. However, the question about where they will go.
That's always a big one.
I've said, apparently Trump has said that they'll have no alternative but to leave Gaza and would like to see Egypt and Jordan take them. How much he can put that pressure on, it remains questionable. However, Morgoth's law applies, and I would very much like to see Morgoth's law be broken for once. I do not want regardless of whatever happens, I do not want to see a single one of them in a European or a North American country. I don't want them inside any of those borders, period. I know that there's the question of humanization and humanity. Also the Gaza Strip is basically functionally unlivable. I mean, even the United Nations has basically said that that's not an inhabitable area ever, and it's only a matter of time before it really goes away. Trump had announced that they were going to seize control of the Strip, clean it up, remove all unexploded ordinances, and rebuild. So I guess some sort of Marshall Plan for the Gaza Strip. Does that mean U.S. ownership? If that's the case, that gives the American military force power projection in the Mediterranean of its own accord, rather than relying on regional partners and allies. That remains skeptical. I think that while Netanyahu and Trump don't have the world's best relationship, if all the Steve Witkoff stuff is definitely true, God knows that Netanyahu's not happy with this administration. I feel like this is a concession for much bigger things, and also that it's a geopolitical hot potato anyway, and it's not like Netanyahu will be in power forever, and that whoever inherits the Israeli government after Netanyahu has to probably deal with Trump, because I don't know how much longer Netanyahu has left. If a ceasefire comes into effect and the Americans take over the Gaza Strip, you're left with the question of, okay, does Netanyahu want to break any ceasefire agreement, say go for the Golan Heights like he has been doing, or does he have to face the fact that he's quote-unquote won the peace and he can retire without an angry mob of Israelis wanting to kill him? Either which way, it's not a fun situation, and I can only speculate. But my official position is that I remain highly skeptical of any action that is going to be done in this area, and I do not want a single one of these displaced persons entering Europe or my country. End of discussion.
Yeah, and whether or not the Israelis would be even happy with it. I think the thinking of Likud would be, if America... I think initially they thought like, if America's there, that's great. They're great, whatever. But I think if Trump is doing this to squeeze Likud out, which, people have accused him of being a Likudnik and all that. He certainly is a Zionist. Let's not kid ourselves. But if it is a case where the American military would essentially kibosh any further military action, that would be a very interesting geopolitical situation. But I mean, Bill Wilson, I do unfortunately tend to agree. I mean, this is another case of Likud winning again. I mean, let's just be real with it. So yeah, let's move on because I agree with Prude as well. I think that it would be terrible if everyone would be like, okay, well, these Middle Eastern countries don't want these people, so I guess Europe could be the dumping ground of the Middle East. Who cares, right? That would, of course, be an incredible tragedy as well. So we'll see what happens. I'm not like so inclined to say that this is like some 5D chess by Trump to dick over Netanyahu. I don't. It may be, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but we'll see. So I'm not that invested in a narrative either way, but I do see that unfortunately it's shaping up that Netanyahu's geopolitical aims are more or less being fulfilled, which is unfortunate, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, the tariff thing, what else is happening? The USAID thing has been like, apparently certain subreddits are being shut down and the FBI is going after Reddit. Did you see that our white people Twitter is temporarily shut down?
Well, I think it's because there was a lot of Fed posting.
Yeah. And it's one of the worst ever, like the hideous scum.
Trying to shut down. I mean, all these places. I mean, whether it's on Blue Sky, TikTok, or Reddit, really all of these things are probably someone's got a little microphone to the screen, right? Just there's some really fucked up people. I mean, these people are sick, mentally speaking, and
literally.
I had a conversation of this in a group chat that I'm in or that I run. That I really do think that you're kind of back in the 70s in some ways. Like, there are a lot of like weird underground, semi-public facing cults that are back. And I mean, whether it's the transgender one that we saw with that, was it in Maine or Vermont, where they killed that Border Patrol agent? You had a transgender person try and kill Treasury Secretary Bessent. I mean, all of this is, I think more of that's going to come. A social contagion that has also been given hundreds of millions of dollars over the last like 10, 15 years. And now all of a sudden someone's trying to like put a stop to that. I think all that does is encourage a literal chemically addicted unit class to be like, well, time for the desperate measures and time to enact my Aaron Bushnell fantasy and maybe take someone with me. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes back. But like, you're in the wave of this great social upheaval. And now you're in sort of like the post-coital, recognizance of what's happening. And you're like, okay, well, there's a Republican in office. There's shit going on in the Middle East. There's sort of a crisis about oil supply. And, oh, by the way, there's all these like weird cults of power and interest in Eastern religion. And you're like, that feels familiar. And at the same time, that was also accompanied with, a great deal of terror and concern.
Well, the negative side of the New Age movement really was Jim Jones and Charles Manson. That was the...
I wonder if we'll get more of that in the coming decade.
There's also other ones on the far right that I'm not going to name because honestly I don't want the attention of these people, and I'm not going to name the certain organizations, even if I find certain things intellectually curious. But you all know the recent teen ones. Let's not even touch that. But yeah, Prude, you're 100% right. I mean, it almost is like a second religiousness, like what Spangler talked about. Are we going to have a Heaven's Gate cult, but with?
Yeah, why not? I mean, anything's possible.
We already have.
I don't say that to encourage that kind of action. I say this explicitly that I genuinely think that there is going to be an emphasis. There's also like all these techno cults too. I mean, like. There's accusations about like Vermilia and the rest of them.
Yeah.
That are like, I think that you're going to see a lot more. Again, Silicon Valley being this cultural epicenter of weird shit, both good and bad.
Well, hey, you mentioned Heaven's Gate. They were all Silicon Valley people.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah,
it rhymes.
I think Raelians were also the first to get involved in Silicon Valley as well. ALSX. Oh no!
You can only save yourself if you finish in the fluffer.
Oh my god. No, but it's true, man. There's like a ton of weird connections between Silicon Valley, Laurel Canyon, cult activity, Eastland Institute, the CIA. A lot of that stuff. You know, it's funny. I was talking about this with Default Prude. I was thinking of like doing an expose on. There's a bunch of these like new age. How could you describe them? In the mid 2000s, there were like these new age conspiracy documentaries. You had like The Arrivals, which was like a Muslim one. You had like Thrive, Climactica, Ungrip, a lot of the Alex Jones stuff. Like you had like this weird thing, like where it's like the New Age movement just like clashed together during GWAT with.
I really think it was the last throes of sort of
Zeitgeist. There you go.
Yeah, I think it was the dying death throes of like the Y2K zeitgeist that got spurred up because of the global war on terror.
Yeah, 100%.
You got all this like very much what's the word, predictive programming kind of about like future warfare, future weapons, cybersecurity, etc. And at the same time, right, you know, that's very true. Days of USAIDs. You know, I just got fired from USAID. It's over for me. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these drugs of prep, but maybe I'll give them to Destiny. But
he's gonna need it in prison soon.
Oh, see, look at that normie sadism pop out of you, Gio. Look at that. Oh,
I know, but it's Epstein-y. What can I say?
It's Epstein-y. I like that because it's Epstein and Destiny is perfect.
Felted. Yeah. What were you saying, Prue?
Oh, he'll get felt in court, all right. No, but I think it's just this mix of the zeitgeist of like this sort of like millenarianism, Christian eschatological, but then it's like all these dark secret societies. It's like the perfect mix of like black helicopters coming to take over for the New World Order. But oh, by the way,
the reptilians.
They're all inside the country already, and they're in every major institution of, you know, in every captain of industry. You know, and on one hand,
and also they take DMT to communicate with dark gods.
Absolutely, that's where the elves are from. Thank you, Curtis. Greatly appreciate your insight there. So there's a lot going on, and I think that that's a big part of it. I think you're going to get a lot more of that to come out, especially now that there's sort of been this revived hippie, new agey revitalization of like Christian spiritual warfare. I think that'll come back.
Network spirituality. That's
network spirituality. I mean, like the Russell Brand, Tucker Carlson people. I think you'll see a lot of that. And you know, it's not like Carlson doesn't have a background in the intelligence community, so it's just like, it raises some interesting questions, and I think that you'll see more of it as time goes on.
Well, you know, Prude, there's a lot of different connections going forth. I mean, if you wanted to really talk about the conspiracy movement eschatology, I mean, of course, Hal Lindsey's Late Great Planet Earth was like seismic among evangelicals in America. Then also, I mean, well, Prude, you're Orthodox. I mean, you've read this. I mean, Seraphim Rose talks about the New Age movement and some potential New World Order activity and how a lot of people in the 60s were being led astray with certain quasi-spiritual practices and guru grifters, charlatans of the spiritual variety and so forth. And so nowadays you have sort of like a, you know, I'm not accusing like Charlotte Fang of being anything. I'm just saying, or whoever, but I think that you do have to have an air of caution. And so this is why I think like those 2000s New Age conspiracy documentaries were quite fascinating, because it was the last time that you really did have millennials in particular finding a form of spirituality. And I think like nowadays there's sort of like, you could see it coming down the pipe, because at the height of the new atheist movement, you also had millennials like, you know, watching Terrence McKenna documentaries and taking DMT, and you had like different people subscribing to different like eccentric beliefs. David Icke certainly was like a leader. I mean, God, the guy in 2009, he sold out Wimbledon Arena. Like it's incredible. You can't really fathom that. You know what I mean? And I think for whatever people can say about David Icke and him being crazy, that does have a level of cultural power. But also I think that when it comes to the right wing, you do have a weird phenomenon where as the rest of the world becomes like more New Age wooish, the right wing in turn becomes more secular, which I could never understand. You'd figure like the right wing would be a catalyst for it, but instead, I mean, you do have a Christian right wing sectors. You do have like people that are Buddhists now or whatever. Yeah, the Venus Project with what's the guy's name? Jack. Who is the Venus Project? The resource-based economy. What was his name? I know that one guy that debated.
That's a great question. Let's go look it up.
The one guy debated Molyneux, but then the Jack, what was his name? Oh man.
Jacques Fresco.
Jacques Fresco. Whatever happened to him? Is he dead now?
That's a great question. What happened to Jacques Fresco? Yeah, he died in 2017.
Oh my god.
At the age of 101.
Wow. Maybe the resource-based economy.
Roxanne Meadows is apparently the administrative colleague. She oversees much of the management of the Venus Project.
Oh man, I remember that one guy that Molyneux debated from the Venus Project. I think they kicked him out though or something. He kept like saying that like Molyneux was truncated. Remember he like loved that word, truncated.
Mm-hmm.
He like loved that word. This was like way back. This was like back in like 2017 when Molyneux was still on YouTube. I remember that debate. I remember he debated that Storm Clouds Gathering guy who was also like into the resource-based economy stuff. And I remember this was back in like the early, like not early Stefan Molyneux days, because I remember the early Stefan Molyneux days when he was still known as StephBot. But I remember he debated the Storm Cloud Gathering guy, and I swear, for an hour, they debated over the purposeful obsolescence of light bulbs. Like for an hour, they debated about light bulbs, and it was like it was incredible. I watched it live. This is
sounds incredibly entertaining.
This is Stefan Molyneux went from NAP to aggression principle now really quick. Yeah, that's true, Cliff Jaden.
So true.
So true. No, but this is like, yeah, only an old head remembers this stuff, right? But so I do find it fascinating how going forward, you do have like this weird revival of a lot of this stuff that was ever present in the mid 90s or the early 90s and the mid 2000s. And so, who knows? Maybe like, who's like a Benjamin Stewart? Maybe he'll make some more documentaries again. You never know. Like there was like, I remember people used to read Reality Sandwich, Daniel Pinchback, who got really angry on BTR once with Owen Cyclops. Apparently they're making an Art Bell film.
I saw that with Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Giamatti's like a terrible fedora tipper, but he is a great actor. I will say he's a great actor. Have you ever watched Lodge 49? Have you ever watched that show?
No, I haven't.
It was produced by Paul Giamatti, and the main actor was the kid of Kurt Russell, and what's her name? Who is his ex-wife? I forget.
I do not know.
So Lodge 49 was actually about like a new age spiritual, like a quasi Mason cult. Goldie Hawn, thank you, Bolero. Goldie Hawn. It was a great show. I loved this show. Me and my old man, we were like obsessed with this show, and it only had 2 seasons on AMC because I think they had needed the money to make another Walking Dead ripoff, spinoff, whatever. But it was a great show. I highly recommend it. Maybe we could even review it one day. But it was an amazing show. Lodge 49. It comes from the Thomas Picton book, The Crying at Lot 49, which is also about secret societies and new age cults. So, yeah, it's a great show. And Paul Giamatti's a great actor, even though he's a fedora tipper. He's a great actor. I always like Paul Giamatti's work.
I will forever have a special place in my heart for Paul Giamatti just because of how well he did in John Adams.
Yeah, John Adams, that was great. I only watched a few seasons of Billions because I thought like the later seasons were getting ridiculous. And so I don't even know what happened at the end of Billions, but me and my old man used to watch it, but then we were like, this is getting stupid. So yeah, you will see more of this, and you will see the far left and the far right gravitating to a form of occultism and gravitating to a form of millenarianism. And it's like, I saw this great tweet. I was going to do a core report spiel on it, but I remember there was this great tweet, Prude, by Measured Head, Ray measured head.
Vaguely familiar.
He had this tweet where apparently these leftoids were talking about Bushnell, and they were talking about how, like the John Glubb thesis that all empires only last like 290 years or 250 years or whatever. And he said, like, this is the perfect combination of leftoid cope. Bernie Bro, Aaron Bushnell, and John Glubb's every empire only lasts 250 years.
Yeah, which there's enough data to kind of disprove that thesis. But I did see the tweet about it. And I remain skeptical. It's this. I guess parapolitics are back. I mean, it's not like they never went away, but I mean, a lot of that parapolitics stuff would also have been on the right wing and some of the fringes as well, because so many people were like trying to understand, well, where's the money coming from? Who's connected to who? And some people who have written books and other things have had their sort of excuse me, I don't want to say like burnouts or coal outs or whatever, but like they did stake a lot of their reputation on like these ideas, and it didn't necessarily go the way that they wanted to, and that puts them in a difficult spot reputationally, I suppose. And with that being said, I think that now that Trump is in the White House, all of that gets to come back and be in the mainstream. And again, I think that's why the sort of sensory overload of the Trump administration's media blitz has been good, because it's been harder and harder to do it. And the real quote unquote parapolitics has been happening by quants, all these like data analysts that are just like, well, this is how much money we're spending. Like, this is how much we're spending on this. This is how much we're doing on that. This is how much we're procuring for X, Y, and Z. And, even Zelensky is just like, well, we were promised billions of dollars, but I only saw, X amount of billion. And it's just like, well, someone didn't read the bills, because a lot of that went to fucking defense contractors. But like,
went to Raytheon and Lockheed Martin
and Booz Allen Hamilton.
Yeah. And I mean, Eric Prince is obviously benefiting from this Trump administration as well. I mean, do you guys remember Blackwater? Do you guys remember that?
Old man Big Chad.
Do you remember back in the day that footage where they first went into Fallujah, and there were these like U.S. Marines with Blackwater contractors on this roof, and they're like, "Oh man, this is like a turkey shoot," and the Blackwater helicopters were actually like resupplying the U.S. Marines. Like, I remember that footage. I remember that. That was like, that was insane. Time. It was a different time, man. It was cowboy time. Yeah, man, I remember that. They said, "Oh, this is like a turkey shoot." Do you guys remember the Celestine prophecy? Yes, I have the book. I'm looking at the book on my bookshelf right now. I have all three of those books.
I'm not.
My old man read them. Yeah, my old man read them too.
What are these books, Gio?
They're sort of like Age of Aquarius type of like New Age stuff. I think they also talked about aliens. Celestine. It's been a few years since I read them.
There's been a lot of focus I've noticed where a lot of like sort of the I like conspiracy accounts on Twitter that make the rounds. They're saying like there's going to be some big UFO alien disclosure, under this administration, which, I mean, during the campaign, there was a lot of promise of that. How much of that is likely to happen, I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to see what gets disclosed. I think a lot of it really is going to be more Project Blue Book, just defense contractors and the U.S. Air Force and Space Force fighting for budgets, but I could be wrong.
Oh, what book? Because the Celestine Prophecy is a novel, right? But it's about like New Age spirituality and consciousness. Walter, how do you spell his name? Kern, Walter Kern.
Kirn.
Kirn. Because there's a politician, Walter Kern, but our good mutual and friend Walter Kern, who I did a,
mutual and friend.
Oh yeah, sorry. I did a review of the film Up in the Air, to which his novel was based off of, a paid review on Jenna Reviews, which I have to keep pumping out these paid reviews. But he wrote this novel called Mission to America. I wonder if I could get him on the show if we could read that book, because Mission to America was essentially about like this like weird second religiousness where there's like these New Age grifters and gurus everywhere, and there's like backpackers and hippies, and it's like really like this book like basically predicted what America kind of is like now. There's like ski bums, and people are like tapped into like an endless flow of soma, of like pop culture and prawn, and it's like that book is essentially like what we're living through now. And I think I said this on Twitter, and Walter Kern's wife actually replied to me, and maybe we could get him on the show. That would be great. I wonder. He does that show with doesn't he do a show with Matt Taibbi?
I think so. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think he does a show with Matt Taibbi.
But I guess I'm gonna have to go read Mission to America now. I mean, I finished rereading Fitzpatrick's War not too long ago, just because I found his old blog that he ran for like a year in 2007, and God, is that blog bleak as hell. Incredibly depressing to read. But when you look at it, you just can't help but think to yourself, okay, what are you going to do about it? And it's just sort of the way it is. But he has this thing about like predict, our desire to know the future, and that we write these guides about the future so much because we want to know what's going on, lest we lose our faith in ourselves, and by that the modern world. So we always focus on what can happen or what will be. And I guess that's another one of these books that I'm going to have to read now, because apparently Walter Kern has written one that you think is pretty prophetic.
Oh, yeah. What's this blog called, Prude?
It was just Theodore Judson on Blogspot. Oh. You can go read all of it. There's not much to it, and it's really depressing.
You know what's crazy is that like when you, by total happenstance, discover an author that sort of like lost to the sands of time, but then you like sort of resurrect it, kind of like you know what I mean? Like I remember like when I was talking about Marty Glass and people forgot about him, or like you deliver an author to your milieu, and there's always something special about it. It's like what would be another example? Like when we talked about the book Deculturation, but Theodore Judson.
I mean, a lot of books or fiction, everyone I think to some extent has like a particular author that they cling to, or even on Twitter, right? Like there's the content creation pipeline of you pick a guy and that's your guy,
like
so
ATM,
or for instance, like Kruptos is like the Jacques Ellul guy, or people want to be like the McLuhan guy, or people want to be the Harold Innis guy, or the Nietzsche guy. Like, I mean, everyone picks a philosopher or a thinker or a writer, and they're like, well, he's kind of got this model in which I can understand the world and make a good lens out of it. And then sometimes I think we do that a lot with, thinkers and academics, but I think you can do a lot as well with fiction writers. And I don't think we give them enough attention or credit where it's due, because, our idea of reading good fiction these days has been sort of A, relegated to the classics, or B, we reiterate our guys and just our guys only, which is fine. I like our guys. Our guys have written great books, but they're also a reflection of the age. And I also like reading something that's a little bit more obscure or older. Yeah. And I wish that we covered more fiction in general.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that I might make a change to do that more this year.
Look, I'm reading the first, a left-handed defense of Don Imus.
Yeah, I mean, want to go back in time?
Oh my God.
That's the way to do it.
What was the thing that got him fired from Sirius?
Oh, that's a great question. That's what it was.
Yeah. Is he dead now, Don Imus?
That's a great question.
I wonder, is he still alive?
Don Imus.
That's like blast in the past, man.
He died in 2019.
Oh my God. It's too bad that like Opie and it's too bad that Anthony Camilla is just like he pulls out. I think he was an alcoholic.
Oh, probably that'll do it. Let's see here. Yeah, alcoholism. No, he died of prostate cancer.
Oh wow. Yeah, Imus has been gone for a while.
No complications due to lung disease is what he had.
Can listen? I don't see any entropy donos. Can someone just please donate something for Chris Hassler? Please give that man a super chat by giving me a super chat.
Or better yet, if the guy keeps asking questions and saying, someone send a super, why don't you just mute him and learn his lesson?
No, but I can't do that because if someone keeps asking me a question, I feel like obligated. So he asks, so you guys better sneak up some super chats. Sneak up super chats. Some do a super chat with Trump's successor in 2028, Stephen Miller or J.D. Vance. Oh, it's going to be J.D. Vance. I mean, Stephen Miller is not like a front-facing...
America's never going to elect an unmarried, policy wonk Jewish guy.
Yeah. He just doesn't have the personality.
Vance will be the heir apparent. End of discussion.
And Stephen Miller will be the guy behind the curtain. That's
probably
basically, yeah. He's more of a guy behind the curtain person. He's not... J.D. Vance, maybe... you'll never know what the Republicans are going to offer up after Trump. J.D. Vance is in prime position. Oh, yeah, Miller has kids now? Okay.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
His wife is hot, too.
Oh, well, good for him. I'm glad that he's not alone. I really thought he was an unmarried policy wonk.
Katie Miller. Katie Rose Miller.
Did he get himself a little Shiska, or did she marry?
No. She's got to be some type of she kind of looks Hispanic or something.
Okay, good for him.
I don't know. Like she's not like 100% white. Katie. Oh wait, I may be wrong. Her surname is Waldman.
Oh well, then never mind. He stayed.
She's probably a Sephardi. I think that's probably. The Miller married Stephen Miller, senior advisor to President Trump, on February 16th, 2020 at Trump. Oh, he got married at Trump Hotel. Miller is conservative.
What a loyal foot soldier.
Yeah. Miller has a daughter born shortly after November 2020 election. Well, that's not prophetic at all. Maybe their daughter could be like the first woman president of the United States in like 30, 40 years. That could be something.
Let's not.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's not.
She was born in Fort Lauderdale, daughter of attorney Glenn Waldman and Cheryl Waldman. She attended Cypress Bay High School. Okay, so I was wrong. She's probably, she worked as a press assistant for the Republican National Senatorial Committee, then press secretary for Senator Stephen Dannies. Is Steve Dannies good? Or is he
no idea who that is.
He, American politician and former corporate executive serving as the senior United States senator for Montana. Okay, he was the Montana senator. Who's in Texas now? It's not Cornyn?
It's John Cornyn and Ted Cruz. That has not gone away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're going to be there for a while, buddy.
Wasn't he the other guy before? What's his name?
Abbott.
Greg Abbott.
Greg Abbott's the governor.
Okay. And John Cornyn's
is the senior senator from Texas.
Oh my God!
And Ted Cruz the junior.
Oh my God. I can't believe Ted Cruz still has a political career. That's incredible.
It was close. It was close in the 2018 midterms. That's for damn sure.
Oh
it was
God.
Close. It was close. We almost had Beto O'Rourke as president or as senator, and that would have been awful.
Yeah. So. Can you imagine Beto?
I
can't.
White
Obama.
I can't. He was my congressman. I know. It would have been bad.
The white Obama. I love
white Obama is Pete Buttigieg. Like Beto O'Rourke is just like the Hispandering white guy. Robert Francis O'Rourke, right? And his dad was like, I think Patrick O'Rourke, and it's just like, okay, a Hispandering white guy of a wealthy, well-to-do family in El Paso, Texas. Like, I get it. You are not. You can speak the language. You try your best to look the part, but also like you're still just an Irish Catholic guy in a Hispanic city and a progressive Tumblr-esque politician.
It's like Tank Hill, like un occupado, like
yeah.
Yeah.
Except he speaks fluent Spanish. He
okay.
Like he's not a dork.
Do you remember he had the skateboard?
Yes.
He like
came and the DUI.
And the DUI.
A great time was had by all.
David Hogg is the next Beto. That's the Democrat National Convention thing. That was insane.
I mean, it was like, oh, the Dems are just doubling down. And on one hand, I'm all for it. But on the other hand, I'm like, oh god, that just I feel like their strategy at this point is just literally waiting out the clock.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. They're going to do the dark woke thing, but you know what's funny is that I was listening to the dark woke. See, none of their memes can be. It's all downstream from us.
Yeah.
All their memes. Something that they said. I think future Tel Aviv citizen. He said this on Night Owls today. Yeah. That like you're going to get like basic standard like radical liberalism. That's what dark woke is. It's basically just radical liberalism. But you're also going to get what I predicted a week ago, which is that there's going to be a massive neoliberal turn among the far left in America. You're going to essentially have what you've already had, but they're going to be more explicit about it. Where you're going to have essentially corporate-sponsored dark wokeness. You're going to have like, with Trump's tariffs, with protectionism, they're essentially going to say
you're going to get crunchy neoliberalism.
Exactly. North American Union, good. Free trade, good. IMF, World Bank.
NATO says trans rights, good.
Yeah, exactly. The World Bank, all those terrible neoliberal policies where they privatize everything in these developing countries and they let corporations run wild. That's actually good because corporations
are based now. Didn't you hear it's based?
Yeah, yeah. People like Liv Arger, they use based now. And Juniper, all the Transformers and Decepticons, they use the word based, and I've seen them post like our soy jacks. Like I've seen them post for example, you have like irony leftists that are posting the fell forward again memes.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, there are memes that like it's like Chud Jack, where there are memes that 4chan and the frogs created to critique each other, to critique ourselves or the excesses of ourselves. But then the political left, they interlope and they look at those memes like Chud Jack and they take it on face value. They take it as sincere rather than as self-critique. And then they pollute it. They ruin it, So, yeah, dark.
Wow, what's that? Lefties ruin everything they touch? You're telling me this for the first time.
Yeah, did you see Will Menker retweet the DSA tweet about the Transformers rights rally that they're gonna have?
They're gonna have a trans rights rally.
Yeah, then Will Menker retweeting it, and like I remember because like Will Menker went on that Cinderella show about like, oh yeah, man, like all these strongly online people, and I'm just like a hip, cool, older millennial, bro. And it's like, well, okay, I believe in nothing.
You believe in that until you realize I'm gonna get canceled and eaten alive by my own people if I don't get on board with trans rights.
I'm gonna get Virgil Texas. That's what I'm gonna get. Yeah. I love how those people live in hell. I love how Will Menker lives in a mental hell. I love how Kush Bomb is like always looking over his shoulder at the mob. It
makes you wonder, like, I mean, because again, like now that you're in this position of resistance, I guess like the libtard, patron milk machine is back, where it's just like, oh, every single lefty video essayist that is like pro-trans or whatever, it's like, well, now I can do these like YouTube sponsored fundraisers for like the Innocence Project or whatever like gay rights org that they want to be part of. And so it's just like, okay, like this is the way that the game is going to get played. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. So they might as well, make the most of it. And I guess this is good for anyone who's on HRT in regards to BreadTube right now. I guess that maybe we'll get a resurgence of that. But who knows? Maybe with USAID being cut, maybe BreadTube is gone forever into its sort of irrelevancy. But I wouldn't hold my breath. I can rejoice.
You can't make one video a year anymore.
No, but I imagine that it'll be something more like what's his name? Like I'm sure the H bomber guy, the aging millennial leftists are super happy right now. They're like, oh my god, within 4 years I can retire. This is so good. Because Trump will be gone, and if things get worse for me, then I guess somehow, some way I can be part of the resistance again. I can be cool again, guys. And, and they'll be like, dude, you're pushing 50. You're on certain hormonal therapies to counteract osteoporosis. It's over for you. But I think also it's a terrifying existence because in a lot of ways, it's like you don't have health insurance and this is your job forever. Like, you are screwed. Like, how do you take care of yourself?
Well, Liv Arger's Canadian, so doesn't have to worry about that.
Well, sure. Well, then,
we'll have to worry about other things about Canadian healthcare.
Imagine that's their final video. Just imagine.
There would be a bread tuber that does a documentary on MAID, and the end of the documentary is actually going through MAID.
Is his goodbye.
Sorry, her for YouTube purposes. Her goodbye. Like,
that's a dark realization. Someone will do it. Someone will live stream the whole thing, and then YouTube will get in trouble because they'll want to censor the video because it shows death. And then there's somebody like, all right, bye now. I'm gonna go to sleep. And then like the family will actually show the unedited version where
on Patreon.
Like it was like this agonizing, deathly experience, and like their desire to show how like safe and effective euthanasia is. And it's just like our son wanted to make a point and look at it, and look at it, and it would be it'll be awful.
It'll be terrible.
It'll be terrible, and we truly do live in hell, and a hell that we probably deserve, which is terrifying in its own right. But yeah,
well,
that's a really sad fucking digression we went down.
Yeah,
I'm impressed myself.
I think YouTube, you can't. I know that they do have documentaries on YouTube about Dignitas and Scandinavia, but they don't actually show. Like, I think they censor them drinking the drink. I think like you have to censor that.
Well, I'm not surprised.
I remember watching that. It was on TVO. This is years ago. I told you that story about
on
watching
TVO. Do you? Okay,
TV Ontario.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, did you just fuck up saying TiVo? I was about to just scream because I know you mispronounce all sorts of shit on the show, but I was like, did he really just fuck up TiVo? Okay, go on. TV Ontario.
No, TV Ontario.
Okay.
I remember I told you I watched this documentary on Dignitas in Scandinavia where this scientist, I think he was American, he was a scientist, but then he had, I believe, Huntington's, and he paid like $200,000 to fly and procure the services of Dignitas. And they did and they actually showed it. They showed him drinking the drink. And it was like, I remember watching it, and I remember like having, and this was before MAID, by the way. It was just when they started, it was with the Robert Latimer case. If you guys remember Robert Latimer, for any Leafs in the audience, I remember feeling this feeling of emptiness. I just witnessed this guy paying all this money
to die,
to basically do something that people have struggled to avoid for millennia, since the splitting of the amoeba. And people that, there's so many places in the world where basically life and death is cheap. And this guy's paying $200,000 to be set off. And I remember he was talking about how the reason his family wasn't crying, his 2 kids, because they made peace with it, and how he was a scientist and he doesn't believe in God, and really, who cares? And I remember like watching, I think I was like 15 years old when I watched this. And this was when the Robert Latimer case was happening. And I remember just feeling empty. I remember feeling like, this is insane. This is like, and then lo and behold, 10, 15 years later in Canada, we have MAID. So, and now there's hundreds of stories like that. Literally every single year in Canada, hundreds of cases. And not all of them are terminally ill diseases. Some of them.
No, a lot of it's just poverty.
Yeah,
or depression.
And depression. Yeah. So, yeah. But let's move on because also I'm going to get pissed off. So I am already pissed off. But like,
you want to just go to the article then?
We'll go to the article. Okay. So finally, for what we've all been waiting for. This is the Dean Kissick article in Harper's Magazine. It made a huge amount of waves in the contemporary art world. And I think that Dean Kissick himself he always like tried to play the fence with like the post-left thing, but he's like, I think he's just like coming out and saying it now, like he doesn't really care anymore. So
well, until he gets fired.
Yeah. Well, Harper's Magazine's actually more conservative, but I believe he's the editor of Spike Art Magazine, or he was, and I think he has a job at Art Forum, and he hasn't been fired yet. So I think, but this article, he's actually pretty scathing in this article. So he's like just coming out and saying it. So let me go to the presentation, and I don't think we'll read all of it, but there's some artists he lists here in this article that I would highly recommend you all reading this article. And actually, he talks about this Iranian artist, this woman Iranian artist that is pretty damn good. So there's many artists he references that are actually quite good. And there's many artists he references here that are horrible, that are cheap, and, you know, they're just like, their identity is their artwork. That's the whole point. Their identity is the artwork, not what they're actually producing. You know what I mean, Prude? So we're gonna, here he is. There you go. The Humans of Flat Design by Frens Lang. I think I.
What's that? Humans of Flat Design.
It's ironic. It's ironic.
It's ironic. Ah.
All right.
If I keep having it on screen, it's gonna grow on me. So I need to.
Yeah, I know.
Get myself into the art guy. There we go.
So I'm going to summarize the first half because this is not the most interesting part. Basically, his mother broke her leg going to a gallery in London, and he flies to London to see his mother, who's in the hospital, and she asks him point blank, was the exhibit that I saw worth seeing? And so here he goes about, so I visited her in the hospital. When I did 2 weeks later, my answer proved correct, that no, it actually wasn't worth seeing this gallery. And that she went to, where was it? Oxford Square. So here you go. It's called Unravel, The Power of Politics in Textile and Art. When I visited her in the hospital, Mom asked whether the show was worth losing her legs for. I said no. I told her. 2 weeks later, I was firm in my question. My answer was proven correct. Unraveled features tapestries, quilts, needlework, sculptures, and installations by modern artists, the majority of whom were of historically marginalized identities. Crossing the lines as craft being gendered as feminine rather than fine art. So this is all the wall blurb, by the way. When you go to fine art galleries, they have the wall blurb, you know, Prude. So what does it mean to imagine a needle, a loom, or a garment as a tool of resistance? Oh my God. So we're already getting off to a great start, aren't we, Prude?
Oh, yeah. Here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. Hanging from the ceiling above the entrance were Native American-style garments by Jeffrey Gibson, a painter and sculptor also represented the United States and country's pavilion in this year's Venice Biennale. And for those who don't know, the Venice Biennale is kind of like the WrestleMania of the art world. Like, you can't get any higher. It's the Super Bowl of the art world. And if you are in the Venice Biennale representing your country, like, you essentially have made it as a fine artist. Like, you are at the peak. You are the top. And there's been many shows in the Venice Biennale that actually have been pretty good. But as Dean Kissick saying, last year was totally abysmal. So, inspired by his Choctaw and Cherokee heritage, the Choctaw and Cherokee heritage, Choctaw, yeah. The piece was adorned with rainbow pattern patchworks printed with the phrases, "People like us, we play endlessly, and speak to me so that I can understand." What? Farther and among other things were a painted collage depicting a cheerful black woman in a bodega. Because why not? Why not? A bodega. Black woman in a bodega. A small realist embroidery of drag, and I can't say that word in YouTube, marches in New York City. Sculptures of cacti stitched from U.S. Border Patrol uniforms.
This is art. This is art, fellas.
This is art. This is great.
This is art.
Oh, I guess because it's the Mexico border, they have to have cacti, right? And an image of a woman giving birth embroidered on blood red silk, her vast womb radiating waves of energy. Well, that's actually kind of based. That's a good one. That's like a new agey, like that's like an Alex Gray painting. When his wife was pregnant, he painted her like with the Alex Gray stuff. I know Alex Gray's like new age kitsch, but that was actually a pretty good one. There were decorative knotted pieces, hand-stitched collages, abstract woven works suspended in air, and pillow bundles of cloth. Series of empty spaces. The London Review's book lecture series that was scheduled to include the Shoah after Gaza. Okay. The Shoah after Gaza. A talk by writer Pankaj Mishra that he later published an essay in the magazine. The disappearances began when two pieces by Loretta Padway, an elderly quilter from Gee's Bend, Alabama, were removed by their lenders, Lorenzo Levesti and Faya Mayat. Another lender and 4 prominent artists followed suit. Some of them wrote open letters alleging that the museum was censoring pro-Palestinian speech. In the words of a Lebanese painter, embroiderer, and video artist, Moner El-Sol, speakers who are raising their voices for justice are being canceled. So you have to realize, like, typically our world, they're pretty pro-Palestinian. So I think, like, so you know what I mean, Prude? Like, I'm not going to say anything. We're not going to.
You mean the bugaboo that, Palestinian speech is allegedly anti-Semitic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I mean, even that word being used in the lecture is, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's so this is the first red pill of the contemporary art world. The Chilean poet and installation artist Cecilia Vicuna allowed her hanging woolen streamers to remain in the exhibition, but pinned a letter next to them declaring solidarity with her dissenting colleagues. Yi Ilan, whose display of traditional Malaysian pattern mats with silhouettes of tables woven into them was meant to subvert the power of the table, apparently a symbol of Portuguese, British, and Dutch oppression. The table. The table. I am the table. You know that Botchamania meme?
No, I don't.
Well, it was that song from Lulu by Metallica.
Oh.
And Lou Reed. Yeah, he's like, I am the table. No, but you know that painting of that Dutch colonialist where he's like got his palm out, like wanting payment? You know that one?
Yes.
It was like the money changing table during the colonial administrative days.
I see.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
Okay.
So let's move on. So her essay says...
you people didn't have tables before the Europeans arrived? I mean, I try and lend some, some benefit of the doubt with you people, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but glad to know that's what...
But tables are oppression.
Yes, of course.
Pasted in the cover were 2 canary yellow stickers displaying QR codes leading to an animated website. Oh, that's another thing. I know Sanford Biggers, he did that with his Chimera.
I still can't get over the fact that that's a real person's name.
Yeah, I know, eh? Yeah. But he did that where you scan a QR code and it's got like an animated like NFT. Like I remember that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Animated website with flashing bold-faced text by Leveste and Mayat that read, censorship at the Barbican, repression at the Barbican, racism at the Barbican, genocide at the Barbican. This is because one identity group came into contact with the more powerful identity. Yeah, exactly. That has, anyways, let's not say anymore. It was the most depressing exhibition I had ever seen at the gallery, hardly worth a visit, let alone losing one's legs. While Unravel pretended to be politically radical, even revolutionary, it didn't seem to stand for much beyond liberal orthodoxy and feel-good ambient diversity. It offered fantasies of resistance, but had little to offer in terms of genuine, substantive social change or artistic experimentation. And this will be big right for later in the essay, artistic experimentation. The works were almost entirely produced with traditional methods and materials in recognizable aesthetics and might as well have dated from half a century ago, if not much earlier. Such retrospectives was not limited to the Barbican. Just before my mother's accident, I had gone to the 60th edition of the Venice Biennale, the longest running, regularly recurring survey of international art in the world. Like I said, the Venice Biennale is like the Super Bowl of the art world. When I found there had been much of the same, a nostalgic turn to history, a fascination with identity rendered in familiar form. This year's Biennale, called Foreigners Everywhere, and I guess they were anticipating Trump's election, took 4 identities as its subject: the queer artist, the outsider artist, the folk artist, the indigenous artist, and suggested that they were all foreigners because they were marginalized. It was a show of painted, hand-sewn, sculpted, photographed, and filmed portraits of such figures. Native scenes of everyday life across the global south, from Aboriginal Australia to the Brazilian and Colombian Amazon, and traditional pottery, wood carving, metal sculpture, and dyed fabric. There was a massive mural by a women's collective from Bangalore, a contemporary dance interpretation of violence committed against Chinese migrants and queer people in the West by a millennial choreographer from Hong Kong. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, maybe the British should have, never mind. If only Kowloon Walled City still existed. A text painted that read...
A real work of art.
A real work of art. A text painting that read anonymous homosexual. You know what I feel like this is reading? This is like, do you remember when Common Filth used to do Tumblristas?
This just feels like parody.
Yeah.
You almost can't tell the difference between a right-wing parody of what high art would be from a bunch of leftists and then the actual shit itself.
Yeah. This literally is like we're doing like an episode of Tumblristas. And on a note, Terra Patio, a bronze. There's a bronze Age nude self-portrait of a transgender artist on Plymouth that said simply "woman." Wow. Do you guys feel edgy right now? Do you think this is edgy and subversive? This is, In fact,
I feel so woke.
I feel woke. Yeah, it's dark woke.
I feel empowered.
Yeah, it's dark woke. In fact, every major Biennale I've ever visited over the past 8 years, from Germany to Greece, Italy to the United States, Brazil to the United Arab Emirates, have taken its themes, the deep richness of identity and the rejection of the West. So you have to realize, like, Dean Kissick saying this in the contemporary art world as an art critic is massive. Like, I can't impart to you the significance of Dean Kissick writing that sentence. You know what I mean? It's like, I honestly don't know why he didn't like get fired right away from Art Forum. These biennales have embraced overlooked artists from the 20th century and exhibited recycled junk, traditional craft, and folk art. Their press releases have heralded the reclamation of pre-colonial forms of knowledge, like indigenous thought and magic. Only 10 years ago, the art world was something very different. A globalized circuit of biennales and fairs that ran on the international trade of ideas and commodities. It was a space of spectacle and innovation, where artists tried out wildly different mediums and entertained radical ideas about what art could do and why. They were workshopping new cultural forms for a new millennia. Art was where experimentation happened, where people worked out what it felt like to be alive in the strange new century and how to give the feeling a form. Artists were researchers who never expected to come to any conclusions. They had the freedom of absolute purposelessness. And for those who don't know, that phrase right there comes from the famous Clement Greenberg essay on what is modernism. That the modern work of art is by definition something that lacks a utilitarian impulse. and therefore it becomes, in a weird way, a new form of sacredness in the work of art, because it is not profaned. It does not have a utilitarian use. And so this is where Dean Kissick says that absolute purposelessness. But those things that are not purposeful, those can breed new cultural forms. And that's the whole point. So Peter Levinas, I think, Levinas did write a little bit about the work of art. So the purposeful purposelessness, yes, exactly. That's incredibly Taoistic. That's almost like in the Tao Te Ching until you talk about the uncarved block and the unbleached stone. Something that is purposeless, by definition, does not have the mark of a form of, how shall I say it? It is a unique aseity. It is uniquely on its own. It is not given to use or functionality. When it is given to functionality, it ceases to have that sort of verb, that sort of energy. So yeah.
Can I interrupt real quick with
go
news?
ahead. Yeah.
So if you go to USAID.gov, this is what the website now says. On Friday, February 7th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all USAID direct hire personnel will be placed on administrative leave globally, with the exception of designated personnel responsible for mission-critical functions, core leadership, and specially designated programs. Essential personnel expected to continue working will be informed by agency leadership by Thursday, February 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern. For USAID personnel currently posted outside the United States, the agency, in coordination with missions in the Department of State, is currently preparing a plan in accordance with all applicable requirements and laws under which the agency would arrange and pay to return travel to the United States within 30 days and provide for the termination of PSC and ISC contracts that are not determined to be essential. The agency would consider on a case-by-case exception and return travel extensions based on personal or family hardship, mobility, or safety concerns for other reasons. For example, the agency will consider exceptions based on the timing of dependent school term, personal and familial medical needs, pregnancy, or other reasons. Further guidance on how to request an exception will be forthcoming. Thank you for your service. End of statement.
They're bringing the activists, the NGOs, and the journalists home so they can no longer do any more damage across the globe. That's incredible. That's incredible.
There you go.
Yeah. Is that a train in the background, Prude?
Yes, I live next to a train.
Wow. I always wanted to live next to a train.
And I've probably fucked myself by just saying that, but yeah.
You're going to get that guy? That
spooky guy?
That doxes, that can
dox
any location. Yeah.
It's over for me, guys. It was nice knowing you.
Oh my god. Anyways, I was a train kid when I was a little kid. You know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that, but now it's good to know what your autism was.
I had like a whole my mom. We had this like wooden like bed platform that my mom, she made Thomas the Tank Engine, my whole set. I had like the turnstile going into the yard. She made like out of like paint and like hot glue, like a glue gun. She made like a little river for one of the bridges. I had like this whole
Gio,
set.
you were spoiled and loved.
I was, I shouldn't admit that. I shouldn't admit this, but I was.
Spoiled and loved.
I had like a whole big Thomas the Tank Engine set that But you know what's funny though is because I lacked any sort of location or object permanence. There's this local mall, and if you have been in the Niagara region, you know what mall I'm talking about. That I live near, not totally near, but I live fairly close. There was this toy store that had Thomas the Tank Engine, and I guess because I didn't pay attention, to prevent me from begging my parents to get something, they would avoid that section of the mall, and they told me that the Thomas the Tank Engine store was an hour away, and so we couldn't go.
Oh, your parents were good.
And I believed that. Do you remember the Sears catalog?
I do.
My parents had to hide that from me. The Sears Christmas catalog. My parents in November they had to like stock the mail before he got to it. The Sears Christmas catalog back, only millennials know that.
I need this clipped. Chat, I need you to clip that right now. I need Gio's train autistic story for all of Twitter. This is so good.
So my parents told me that the fucking chain store was an hour away, but it was in the other wing of the mall.
This whole story is a work of art.
So yeah, and then he had the Sears toy catalog for Christmas. It was around November, and my parents had to hide it from me. Because I'd like have like a Sharpie and I'd like circle the toys. Oh my god! And then one year I found it. And my parents were like, "Oh my god, it's over! It was
so over."
Yeah, I would like circle the toys and video games that I wanted.
Oh my god!
Oh man, that was.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's funny.
I shouldn't. I have other embarrassing stories like about locking up.
I don't think that's really an embarrassing story. I think that's just a childhood classic.
Yeah.
You mentioning locking the bathroom door. That's an embarrassing story.
Locking the pantry door because they would have like sweets in there. And so
this is Gio's fat boy origin story.
So they'd have to like lock the sweet drawer. Why am I admitting this? Why am I admitting this?
I should probably do that for myself soon.
Yeah.
Lent is around the corner. I need to lose some weight.
Yeah. Sears catalog was well thumbed for various reasons.
Oh yeah, some of those pages I'm sure were sticky for young Gio.
Oh man, imagine if they didn't lock the sweet drawer.
Gio Panichetti dies of childhood diabetes.
I was bad, man. I was bad when I was a kid. I was a problem child, man. Like I admit.
Well, you're an only child, so yeah.
Yeah. Seamus O'Blain says, I used to live between a raised subway and a high-speed train line, also raised, thankfully not too near to you either. That would have been interesting, though. I gotta admit. Like, I know the noise and everything. But yeah, that was insane. I guess because I didn't have object permanence. Like, I know I told you the story about how
what do you mean you didn't have object permanence? I mean, were you like 5 years old and peekaboo still scared the shit out of you, or
no? Like I thought, okay, when I was a kid, this is like in grade 2 even or grade 3. I thought like whenever they gave me homework, like especially math, I got this idea in my head that I didn't have to do it if I just left it in my locker at school. So I like didn't have to do it. And so my old man always rags on me whenever I'm like procrastinating something. He goes, "Yep, you're shoving it in the locker again." It was like a form of sympathetic magic. Like I thought that if I didn't bring the homework home, if I left it in my locker, then it would just magically go away and I didn't have to do it. Like,
this has been a very enlightening discussion. I now understand you. I feel like I know you way better now. I understand now.
Oh, man. We were supposed to talk about art, but this is what we're talking about.
This is art.
This
is the best performance I've seen in years.
Oh,
every episode is like the Gio Panichetti performance artist debut. I get a new Gio every week. If anything, I am spoiled rotten to be part of the exhibit. And just like that, we broke him, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Gio putting his DMs in the locker. Oh my god.
Gio putting his e-girls in the locker.
Oh man, no, Gio putting his DMs in the locker.
That's so true. He never answered his message. I'm going to start saying that now. Gio puts his DMs in the locker. Yep, that's how I'm going to explain it to people. So when I get like the sixth message this week, when someone's like, "Hey man, can you talk to your co-host about like responding to my email?" They're like, "Hey man, that email's in the locker. You're never going to see it."
Gio trying really hard to walk back from his parents. Gio like a potato. Treat him like a potato.
Oh my god.
Oh. Gio's locker Groiper.
I need someone to shove the Gio Panichetti frog into a locker for me.
If he doesn't...
Mr. Kissick, if you ever see this, I'm so sorry we've derailed the discussion about your article. But this is kind of a part of the charm of the show.
Oh, man.
We'd love to talk to you.
Yes, I would love to
spare the chuds an hour. I guarantee you'll have an interesting discussion.
Oh, yeah. Guaranteed. It'll be the best podcast he ever did. If he doesn't check his DMs, they don't exist. Oh.
If you want to understand, for the chat, for the chat's edification, I don't talk to Gio that often either. I find out what we're talking about like 5 minutes after the show of previous week and 5 minutes before the show happens. I don't get the StreamYard's link until after, like the day of, and sometimes 15 minutes before the show. The co-host is also in the locker. I'm right there with. I'm there. This frog. The frog is buried under a giant pile of emails and letters and correspondence that I don't even want to fucking read. And I'm here like, yep, this is my story now. This is my co-host.
Oh man.
I'm also in the locker.
Someone needs to make an hour-long super chat of Gio cackling. Line about the toy store location, great. Plato's cave is Gio's locker.
Oh my god.
No, I'm serious. Like I thought, like I didn't have to do the homework. I think I did have autism.
Oh.
You know what's funny? Is that in school?
I think I have what the fuck gave that away? I think I have autism, guys. Really? You don't say.
No, in school they just labeled me general learning disorder when they probably just meant autism. I had to go to like the resource room every day. Oh man.
Gio, where's your homework? Where's your homework, Gio?
I remember one
like
time.
some school, teacher's aide is like taking your like small 8-year-old hand and pulling you to your locker. Like, where's your homework, Gio?
No, Mr. Barr did that. Yeah, he did that. He did that. His name was Mr. Barr. Yeah.
Okay, we need to stop talking about this because God knows you're going to admit some other embarrassing shit. You don't.
I remember one time. I'm doxing myself. I remember one time in grade 2, I had this teacher. She was old. Her name was Mrs. Yamich. My old man. I think my old man knew her. He did a concrete job for her. I remember one time. It was the first time I completed a full math sheet. She cried. There were tears in her eyes after I completed a full math sheet. Because you know what else I used to do? When I had a math sheet, all the different problems, I thought that the ones on the left side did not count, so I would like scratch them out with my pencil. And she's like, Gio, you have to do those too. I go, no, but that's like harder. That's for like the advanced kids. She's like, no, you have to do it too. So I remember like one day I completed a full math sheet and she cried. She cried. Mrs. Yamich, if you're still out there, I love you. She like cried. She's like, oh my God, you completed a full sheet finally. To this day, I have like a math dyslexia. I can't. When I see numbers, my brain just scrambles.
That's why every time he sees that 1 or that 2 or that 5 in his Twitter DM inbox, you know he's never gonna click on that shit.
No, it's true. Like I would just I thought the left side I didn't have to do those ones, so I would just take my pencil and just mark them up. Outstanding.
You know Arrakis is gonna just grill you over the coals when Enoch or Mag listens to this episode. They're gonna be like, Gio, you can't do math.
I literally can't do math. I'm sorry. I can't. I still use my fingers. Oh man. No, I know, but it's true. They actually diagnosed me. I have a learning disability thing. They told me I had to do it, That's why, I think I told you guys this before, but this is how you know I really have autism. I remember when I used to do tests, I never used to write the questions down. This is what my mother told me, because I would say to the teachers, "It's all in my head. Why do I have to write it down?" And
well, you weren't the only person. I knew plenty of kids in school that were like, "Listen, it's in my head. I don't need to show my work. Is the answer correct? Yeah. Well, then why do I need to show it?"
Yeah, and so they got so frustrated. They had a student teacher. Every time there was a test, they had a student teacher sit down next to me and scribe for me. I think that kind of did screw with my writing ability, but yeah, that's how frustrated they were with me.
Was the student teacher attractive at least? I'm
no, it was a dude. He was a bald guy. No, a few of them actually were attractive. They were they were university student women, but I had to whisper in their ear what the answer was at the back of the class. Oh man, that's it. Yeah. So again, enough Geo lore. I think you should. My throat is kind of bothering me. So.
Yeah, I think I'll read. I have no words.
I hope someone clips this. It's got to be a clip.
Good God. Wow, that was something. Okay. Where do you want me to start? But faith. But as faith in the liberal order began to fall apart.
The meme of the woman crying at the chat. Please, Gio, you have to do the division tables too. No, I don't. It's scribbled over with pen. Oh, literally, that's what happened.
Oh my gosh.
I love it. Half the chat's dying with every new story of my child.
I need to call my mom tomorrow. I'm going to tell her how much I love her. I gotta call my parents.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call my mom. Okay. Scroll down a bit, Gio.
I had the gym today. Today was my chest day. Anyways, okay.
There we go. But as faith in the liberal order began to fall apart around 2016, this conception of art no longer seemed relevant. As concerns over identity issues, social issues, and inequalities intensified, there was a sense that the art world had grown frivolous and decadent, and that the proliferation of the forms and approaches over the decades had reached its limit. Art, which had previously been a way to produce discursive polyphony, aligned with itself the dominant social justice discourses of the day, with works dressed up as a protest and contextualized according to the decolonial or queer theory, driven by a singular focus on identity. This turn was a consequence of the art world's own exhaustion and overexpansion. Here was a new direction for art, a belief system to follow that might restore some of its meaning and relevance, perhaps even a grand narrative and purpose. The ambition to explore every facet of the present was quickly replaced by a devout commitment to questions of equity and accountability. There was a new answer to the question of what art should do. It should amplify the voices of the historically marginalized. What it shouldn't do, it seemed to be inventive or interesting.
Now, let's stop here. Well, let's stop here for a moment, because he really describes it in terms of Arthur Danto's thesis on the death of the work of art, or rather, the death of the artwork proper, or the art movement in particular. But notice how he mentions 2016. How 2016 was the sort of seismic shift in questioning the liberal order, when the art world had relied on the politics of identity to essentially solve the question of the purpose of the work of fine art. what is the purpose of the work of art? Well, it's identity. It's politics. Politics in the absence of what John David Ebert calls the sort of, he gets this from Spangler, the iconotypes on the world picture. For example, the heliospheric Christian, like Christendom influencing the work of art in terms of the iconotypes, the archetypes, the belief systems of Christianized Europe, which was a great patron of the arts in both the East and the West. Then you have the collapse of this grand metaphysical system. Ergo, what is the new purpose of the work of art? Excuse me, I was laughing way too hard. Is it art for its own sake? Is it kitsch? Does it have a form of pleasure? What is pleasure? What is meaning in the work of art? This is what the question of why the contemporary art world is so fixated on identity. That is why, because it's basically finding a purpose. If you declare that the art movement is dead, there is no way of going forward. What else can you do? What is the gold-backed currency of the work of art after Bretton Woods? You know what I mean? There's no gold standard. There's no oil petrodollar. What is it? So here I think is a very interesting answer when he brings in Arthur Danto.
Yeah, so here we go.
Yeah, here we go. I'll read it, then you can read Prude.
We then go to the philosopher and critic.
Oh yeah, sorry. The philosopher and critic Arthur Danto believed that art ended in the 60s with Andy Warhol in particular. From the late 19th century onward, there had been a churning succession of modernist movements, each reacting against the last and proposing its own answers to fundamental questions about what art should be. By the end, and here you go. You have to remember, this is where Frederick Jameson talked about the culture industry, the collapse of high and low culture in postmodernity. There is a churning succession to the fundamental question about what art should be. By the end of the 60s, however, following the convulsive leap forward of pop art, with its erasure of the distinction between artworks and everyday objects, and conceptualism, with its dissolution of objects into ideas, there was nowhere left for modern art to go. Danto writes, at first only mimesis was art, meaning the artwork is a similitude of the natural world. It is depiction. Then several things were art, but each tried to extinguish its competitors. So you have sort of like this eugenical war between different art movements. Then finally, it becomes apparent that there was no stylistic or philosophic constraints. There is no special way works of art have to be. It is the end of the story. Like a Buddha that meditated too deeply and passed over enlightenment on the way to raving insanity, modern art had destroyed itself through excessive nihilistic contemplation, navel-gazing. There would still be art, Danto said, and it might even thrive. But the grand narratives of modernism were over. So what movie was that? I forget. Anyways.
I'll go on. To Danto, the closing of this narrative of progress was what made the contemporary possible. As art would no longer respond to itself and no longer had any constraints, other human activities could be drawn from the world into its hungry maw. Art was no longer moving forward. Individual artists were free to consume the present, swallow other cultural forms, and twist them into new experiences. Their variety abounded. Calfé built the floating city in a virtual reality world Second Life.
That's actually pretty good. I saw that. That was great.
Yeah. Paolo Pivi filled a Swiss nutshell with 3,000 cups of cappuccino and a leopard. Kai Guoqing choreographed a fireworks display of a giant's footprints running across the Beijing sky for the opening ceremony of the 2008 Summer Olympics. I remember that. That was actually pretty cool. Oh, yeah. While Shaki filmed an adaptation of Amin Malouf's historical essays, The Crusades Through Arab Eyes, as a feature-length puppet cabaret epic. Felipe Pereno journeyed to Patagonia, to tell 2 hours of rambling philosophical stories to a colony of penguins on the beach, taking only a single photograph is documentation. Karsten Holler kept a herd of reindeer in Berlin's Hamburger Bahnhof, fed half of them fly agaric mushrooms, and built a toadstool-shaped hotel room in which overnight guests could help themselves to the deer's potentially hallucinogenic urine.
That's Terence McKenna talked about that. How the Sami and the other Siberian indigenous people, they found out that you could drink the urine because the reindeer would actually process the psychogenic properties in the red cap mushrooms. And so this is where Terence McKenna believed the Christmas Santa Claus story came from. Basically, Santa Claus is a machine elf guarding psychedelic reindeer. And so in the contemporary art world, you could actually see, back in the day in the art world, you could just do things. You know what I mean? You just do things. So, yeah, also it's safer to consume because if you consume the mushroom itself, I believe it's like a mild, poison. But if you process it through the reindeer, if you just feed them a ton of it and they piss it out, then it's like a filter, and it actually activates the certain acidic compound that gives it psychogenic properties. So, anyways, this in particular, Kai Guoquang, that he's one of my favorite Chinese artists ever. I quite enjoy him. I know there's this essay, Prude, that it's like an interview he did with Boris Groys. It's in eFlux online. And it's he's basically a nostalgic Maoist. He believes that China was better under Mao. But they're talking about there's imagine two old world communists, but they're oh yeah, things are kind of degenerate now. It's very funny in a weird way, but his artwork's astounding. His whole the way he takes Chinese literati painting, but he uses fireworks and explosives. It's incredible. I quite enjoy his work. There was this great, BNN Business News Network. They have this program called Brilliant Ideas about contemporary artists. They actually profiled him, and I highly recommend you. I think it's on YouTube actually. If you search his name on YouTube, you can find it. So I bet he watches Haas. Well, did you know?
Nostalgic for the old days.
Did you know?
Nostalgic for those old days where I was killing sparrows and eating them because we couldn't grow anything.
Did you know that the foremost MAGA communist in America, allegedly, he said he studied art theory and literature under Boris Groys? Do you know who that is, Prude, in NYU, when he was at NYU? The foremost theosophical scholar in America, MAGA communist. Logo Daedalus. Cameron Fuller. Kerry Turnbull. He claims to have studied under Boris Groys. And yeah. If Logo didn't block me, I actually would have interviewed him about that. That's fascinating. But, Logo, I think that ship has sailed. I think he hates me now. He actually said that, he said years ago that I was going down a dark path or something like that. Anyways, let's not bring up e-drama. The year of the 1990s, 2000s, early 2010s was pluralist in its intentions, forms, and subjects. Contemporary art took in such miscellaneous concerns as literature and poetry, avant-garde dance, theater, cinema, broadcast television, psychoanalysis, philosophy, history, politics, noise music, pornography, pole dancing, online abjection, ritual sacrifice, crucifixion, and cannibalism. Have you ever heard of Herman Nietzsche, Prude?
No, I haven't. What am I missing out on?
He died recently. He was part of what they called the Vienna Actionists, where he had these in the hundreds where people would get naked and bathe in pig's blood, and they would have this ritual. And I believe a few
it sounds very anti-Semitic, Gio.
No, it's not about that, but it was about he wanted to do these pagan rituals, and he would like have these like beautiful e-girls that he'd get on the internet. They would like bathe in blood, and they would like just look up Herman Nitsch, look up the Viennese action.
I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't think I will.
All right. So that's what he meant by cannibalism, because he would have these like mock cannibalism.
Now we just have, spirit cooking.
Yeah.
Well, we've upgraded, I guess.
I believe he was also friends with Marina Abramovic. So
of course.
Yeah. Thai cookouts, Zindi Sedan playing soccer match in Madrid, long distance sailing, astrology, industry design, being a dog, biting people, everything. It could all be remade as art. The contemporary was eternally elusive, moving ever further away from the artist's in pursuit, an endless research project. I had this idea once where I would have like but you know what's funny? I think Game Changer Wrestling actually did this. I had this idea where you had an art installation where you have like a very like minimal, like bare bones wrestling ring in the middle of an art gallery, and you would have a 24-hour art wrestling match. But like each wrestler could only wear black trunks, and they would only be able to do a certain number of moves. And this would go on for like 3 days or whatever. I had this idea once. It would be like under a glass case. And so each wrestler would just show up randomly, and they'd have their match. Then the next group would come in. I remember having this idea, but I believe Game Changer Wrestling actually did a 24-hour wrestling show. And so my idea was like totally ruined. So
you could always just do it yourself.
Yeah, I could.
Just with e-celebrities.
Yeah. Can you imagine Paul Scholes against who could he wrestle?
Future Moldovan citizen.
There you go. ECW at the Barbican. That'd be crazy. Anyways.
What we're here for.
There was that artist once in New York. I believe he was also from Hong Kong, where he did these like year-long experiments. One of them was he would film himself in a train station for a year. Another year, this is during the mid-'80s, he was a homeless person for a year in New York City, but he wouldn't, unlike other homeless people, he would never enter any building or structure for a whole year. And the only time he entered a building was when the police arrested him and put him in the lockup for like 15 hours or something like that. So I forget his name, but he was from Hong Kong. Make it a fish tank type 24/7 live tour. Well, there has been artists that have done that. There was artists that have lived in galleries for like a month or something. I think Marina Abramovic actually did that way before Fish Tank Live. So
before she was known for the questionable.
There was that one where she was like naked and like you could see her naked. She was like tied to a table for like a few hours or whatever.
Okay.
Anyways, in those days, it was possible to feel a part of a vanguard, and because there was a mania in the art world and a level of self-belief that money people felt obliged to encourage, received the support and resources to attempt the grandest projects. Contemporary art was fundamentally optimistic. There was a conviction that making art was a good in itself, that pushing its boundaries was a worthwhile endeavor. And the grand leap forward in culture was still possible. Theorists, philosophers, poets, and writers were lured in from other fields. The art world was where you would find the broadest remit to do whatever you wanted. It was where you could find the most unusual and preposterous ideas and open bars, sex, and glamour too. This was the art world that I was drawn to. Throughout my 20s, I would study art history and curation and turning at public and commercial galleries and working at Style Magazine in London. So here he talks about Hans Ulrich Obrist, who is famous in London and Scandinavia. So let's move on. Where is it? Frenzied devotion reflected his convolution that everything should be linked, his idealistic belief in the humanist possibilities of the internet and of globalization. You have to remember, this was like the mid-'90s and early 2000s. People still had that form of optimism that was even in the art world. He still dreamed that connectivity could bring everyone together across broad borders and disciplines, that you could make friends with like-minded people around the world, bound by common interests. art would be the gateway to every other form of culture and philosophy. A map of the present, a new universal language. So here's the theme that you guys can detect. The theme that the work of art could be something that is at the forefront, something that creates culture. But what has the work of art been subsumed to nowadays? It no longer can create culture.
Resist.tm.
Exactly. So, here you go. Yeah, read on.
It's also that optimism that like people who were basically illiterate on McLuhan about like the global village.
Yeah.
They're like, eventually we'll all come together and we'll all have this universal understanding. And McLuhan is just like, well, the closer we get to one another, the more we hate each other.
Yeah.
And the closer that like all these art forms come together, like eventually like a homogenizing force is going to dictate what art becomes.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
So in 2013, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, didn't McLuhan also like predicted the sort of like logic of the culture industry being like, if you're gonna bring people together, you also have to homogenize and you have to like turn everything to like lowest common denominator to like make people understand.
Basically.
Yeah, but yeah, go ahead, Prude.
In 2013, at the Marco Polo airport, waiting for the flight home to London from that year's Biennale, my friends and I sat around the floor discussing what the best life might be. The life of an artist, we all agreed. Pursuing art was a way to be happy and free. Artists could do whatever they pleased. They were famous, respected, and sexually desirable. They could turn anything into art and create their own reasons for doing so. They made huge amounts of money for not doing very much. Surely there was nothing better. But nobody from that airport floor really made it as an artist. Some found success in more conventional careers, some grew staggeringly wealthy off early investments in Ethereum, and some just dropped out of society. And many I've forgotten were ever there in the first place, slowly at first and then all at once. The music faded, the guests vanished, and the party was over. Contemporary art had become so popular, so urgent, so cool, and so well-funded that a fall, in retrospect, was inevitable. As soon as it reached its peak, the height of its great flourishing had already begun its precipitous decline. Early signs of change could be seen in early 2017. That year, Documenta, one of the world's largest art exhibitions, normally takes place every 5 years in Kassel, Germany, was subtitled Learning from Athens and opened in the Greek capital, chosen for its symbolic importance as a gateway from Europe to the global south. Particular attention was paid to indigenous artists such as the I'm not even going to try. Sculptor Bo Dick, whose masks filled the first room, and various obscure historical artists, including the unexpected number of 20th century Albanian socialist realist painters. There was much to gain in the present, the artistic director Adam Kissick explained at the press conference, by turning to the past, by unlearning everything we thought we knew.
Oh, and boy, did they unlearn.
Oh,
did
boy, did they ever. This was at the time a surprising approach, a shock of the old, because it abandoned the contemporary art's obsession with the present, as well as the hierarchy that separated high art from folk traditions, throwing everything together into one sprawling show. The results were overwhelming. It was the first time I had seen traditional beautiful works like the Indian painter Nilima Sheikh's suite of magic realist tempera on scroll landscapes populated with folkloric beings, titled Each Night Put Kashmir in Your Dreams.
That's actually really great. I actually like that piece a lot.
Given such prominence in a major show, the first time I had seen hand-woven representation of a microprocessor that the Intel Corporation commissioned the Navajo textile artist Mary Lou Schultz to make in the 90s. The first time I had heard the Russian composer Arseny Avramov's Symphony of Sirens, which was the first performed on factory sirens, bells, Navy foghorns, and artillery in Baku in 1922 to mark the 5th anniversary of the October Revolution.
Yeah, real proletariat, even though he was like a composer that went to the finest music university in Russia. It's like, I'm celebrating the proletariat. Like it's like literally the sounds of the proletariat. Like it's but what's interesting though is that the art world kind of and there's this book I have on the contemporary art world called Modernism and Anti-Modernism, where the contemporary art world, like, it does have their form of like return to tradition, but only like the return to tradition just instantiates the role of like LGBT race communism. Like that's literally their return to tradition. And so Dean Kissick is like, okay, you go through internet art, you go through like post-internet art, you go through all this like excitement in the 2000s. Like the young British artists could do like whatever they wanted. And, but now you have like, okay, what's return to tradition? It's the global South. It's like, actually, did you know that there is traditionalism in the work of art, only it's not for anyone who's even vaguely European. So it's very funny how that works out. The cumulative effect of these unexpected encounters with so many unfamiliar aesthetics and ideas was disorientating and thrilling. Susnik attempted to contain the whole world, its peoples, and modern history in 47 venues in Athens and 35 more in Kassel. Nobody since has dared to create an exhibition so ambitious or done anywhere near as good job with his historical, non-hierarchical approach. I went to Venice that same year. This Brazilian artist Ernesto Neto had collaborated with the Amazonian Hunikunin people on a large crocheted ceremonial tent called Sagrado Lugar, a sacred place, which functioned as a centerpiece of the exhibition's pavilion of shamans. During those balmy opening days, the Hunikunin led dancing processions through the crowds of curators, critics, dealers, and socialites milling about the Gherardini parkland as though they were actors in a Fellini film. 7 years later, at the 2024 Biennale, representatives of this indigenous people, with a population of around 11,000, still had a spotlight. The entire facade of the central pavilion in the Gherardini was covered in a mural painted by the Movimento de Artistas Hunikunin Makhu, inspired by the Nixie Pai enchanted thread rituals, in which they imbibe psychoactive ayahuasca brew, recite songs led by their chant master, and experience hallucinatory Rembrantian energy images. The Hunikunin artists channeled the perspective of Yuba, the boa constrictor spirit of the forest, using painting as a way of recording their tradition. Yeah, and also in the Amazon, they have the Icaros, which are like these circular patterns that they say that they've invented on various like ayahuasca trips. At the exhibition's entrance, the story of the alligator bridge between Asia and the Americas, in which a giant alligator agreed to bring humans over the Bering Strait, only to submerge itself when they betrayed him, was painted across. By the way, that was potentially a metaphor for the Indo-Europeans, but anyways, only to submerge itself when they betrayed him, was painted across the colonnade in a coloring book style of emotionless cartoon forms filled in with lurid, unblended pigments. So essentially, Humans of Flat Design. That's celebrating this Aboriginal story of creation, which seemed less suited to the entrance of a major exhibition of contemporary art than to a kindergarten playground. Oh boy. It suggested a kind of missionary zeal in reverse. Rather than crisscrossing the globe and stealing the native souls with cameras, curators now bring painted images of more primitive ways of life back to the disenchanted West so that viewers might be healed by their embodied knowledge, or otherwise access a direct link to the time before the fall. To a paradise unspoiled by Trump, populism, Silicon Valley, globalization, modernity, the Enlightenment, capitalism, colonialism, nationalism, whiteness, the linear time, and the agricultural revolution. Our God might be dead, but theirs is a wish to rediscover the other older gods. Wow. Oh, man. Can you believe that, Prude?
Really makes you realize how high on their own supply they are.
They're literally doing ayahuasca in the middle of the gallery, and they're dancing around. You know what's so funny?
They've been their own art world. The art world has been one-shotted.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't. Such cool. But yeah, the art world's been one-shotted. But you know what's so funny is that, like someone like Dugan could like look at this and like, yeah, that's based, man. That's based. It's like based their worldism. They're against the modern world, They're against the Enlightenment. That's amazing. That's incredible. But they're also against whiteness. They're also against,
everything else.
Yeah. So, like, did Varg Vikernes write this? But you know, that's what I mean. Like, there was a moment in 2017, like around this time, where you have like a lot of like trads and a lot of like people in the political right that were sort of like doing this third worldist bent. And, you know, I guess I was a part of it as well. Like, you could look at this and you could say that, you know, okay, they're like attempting to do this. But at the same time, it's within the recognition that your civilization is evil, your God is dead, and actually, you're the ones that are going to be replaced. And you're the ones that have wrought upon the world this evil machine of post-Enlightenment colonialism and capitalism, and that we're going to return to the tradition of the indigenous people. But you happen to not be those indigenous people.
It's a celebration of death.
Really?
I mean, that's all I'm getting out of this is like, oh, we want you. We're here. You can celebrate this, like the death of your own world, and like you can be somehow baptized or born into a world in which is not yours, but very much hates you and wants you to die. And like we're going to express that through art. You know, like your God is dead, so by that extension, we're just going to, you know, bring you into our world, and that world isn't necessarily all that inclusive to you either. But we're going to make you feel like it.
Yeah.
You can get your little high on this little indigenous tradition.
No, but you know what's funny, Prue, is that there's like an old debate, especially like around art brut, right? Like, or outsider folk art, or like when you do like bring various like religious and rituals and artistic practices from the quote unquote global South. Like, is there not a question of like, are you just reifying these people? Are you just like using them as like exoticist baubles for like millionaires to like gawk at them while they do ayahuasca?
Well, that would be the argument I think that even some liberals would make.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, this is just Orientalism.
But that's what I mean. Like, all that gets thrown out the window because if you have like, I think that's what Dean Kissick is saying. Like, if you have like an explicit anti-Western political project attached to that exoticism, the sin of exoticism can go away in a weird way.
Yeah, we'll absolve you if it means that, you know, you're talking about how bad Orange Man is.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, look, he even says return to tradition.
Yeah. Return to non-white European Christian tradition.
Yeah. You want to read this, Prude?
Yeah, I can read for you. No big deal. One might reasonably identify a return to tradition, a longing for the past, with the forces of political reaction. But if conservatives have generally little interest in novelty, neither does anyone else today. Everyone in the world of contemporary art wants to revive a tradition, however recent. Hellenistic Greek sculpture, the Roman cult of Adonis, the ancient Nubian wedding ceremonies, ancestral Pueblo pottery culture, pre-Columbian Mesoamerican song, Mapuche cosmology, Maya Titilucha weaving, Incan mythology, African mask making, and the early Cubist painting it inspired, 50s Americana, 60s New Sacred Art movement of the Oson Osogolgo Sacred Grove, the 80s Beijing migrant worker cruising culture, the late aughts contemporary art, etc. Everyone, it seems, wants to escape the present. We just long for different pasts.
But that's the thing, like we all kind of want that. Like there, like even in I think even Frederick Jameson said that, like within postmodernity, you have this immediate reaction that is essentially anti-modern. But it's what type of anti-modernism you're going to imbibe in. Is it like the Guillermo Fay or like Julius Evola traditionalism, Big T traditionalism? Like, are you going to read like Gunyan and Evola? Or is it like this sort of like global South third worldist traditionalism that's taken up with the political project that is explicitly against you? So it's like, even like when it comes to appropriating like the 50s, like a lot of people I notice they're going back, like there's like rad femmes in the art world that are going back to sort of like the Cindy Sherman critique of like 50s domesticity, housewife stuff, or like they're going back to like an appropriation of rockabilly. And even like the 60s New Sacred Art movement, that was also very interesting because it was
You will give me a minute. I'm getting a phone call.
Yeah, no problem.
Go on.
It was like it was taken up in the New Age movement. And now you do have like the same awareness. But instead of like millennial hipsters going to the Amazon basin and taking ayahuasca, you can just like take these people and put them in the Biennale. And so it's like, it's tone deaf because you're celebrating traditionalism, but at the same time, you're also celebrating contemporary politics as a god, as a way of being. And so you have this like weird cognitive dissonance where the past must be venerated, but only within a narrow parameter of what contemporary political realities or contemporary political ideology can deliver you to that past. It's literally an appropriation of something. So it's like it's not very well thought out in terms of what in terms of like what the possibilities of this traditionalism can bring you. It only delivers you back to a very sterile version of contemporary politics and nothing more, really. So here Dean Kissick goes on to say, exactly which past artists long for largely accords with their own cultural heritage.
We're back.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah.
The performance of which engage in the aesthetic traditions of their ancestors, producing literal representations of their communities and themselves, or simply making their own identity and personal history their subject matter. So now we have the confessional in the work of art. Is both duly rewarded. One particularly popular genre consists of artists filming themselves wandering the rainforest or reenacting old rituals, making videos that exist somewhere between ethnographic documentary and TikTok dance. But you know what's crazy about that? Is that they're all trying to be Ana Mendieta. But all these art hoes in TikTok that do this, that are like 1/3 Maori or something, they're not going to do it better than Ana Mendieta. I'm sorry, okay? You're not Ana Mendieta. You're not going to do it better than her. That's just reality. So do something else, in my opinion. There you go. I'm sorry, because it's all what they're trying to do that. They either want to be Francesca Woodman or they want to be Ana Mendieta if they're sufficiently ethnic enough. You know what I mean? So it's like, but you're not them. She's literally not you. Okay? So your little TikTok dance where you're in the rainforest, it's not going to work. Or you're in like a mud puddle or whatever. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, man. Like, it's just, it's, when they say like read another book, it's like find another artist. Okay?
Well, and it's also that like, you're not going to be able, you can't help the fact that like, oh, this is artistic, but it's like, no, well, yeah, sure, but you're also really just sexualizing yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's all that this becomes. Is at a certain point, it just becomes an erotic display for the sake of wanting attention.
Well, there's like also like an eroticism.
The eroticism is there, sure, but I mean, like, the narcissism is what's at the core of it.
Right. No, but also like there's also the same like Oedipalization or like eroticization of politics as well. That's like another thing on the contemporary left. Like that's like the sort of like vision of revolutionary is often tied with a lot of those. Like, look at all those like communist cults in the 60s. They were all led by predators. You know what I mean? Like that. Like, yeah. So like, I'm just like, listen, I'm a huge fan of Ana Mendieta, and I think what happened to her was like a terrible shame. And Carl Andre's burning in hell right now. But it's just like, you're not going to be her. You're not going to be Francesca Woodman. I'm sorry. But there was only one Francesca Woodman, and you're not it. So, I'm sorry, man. Find another grift, okay? Find another grift. Anyways. This year's Whitney Biennale, even better than Real Thing in New York City. The Chilean Machu Picchu artist, Mapuche artist, Sebastiana Calafusco. How do I say that? Calfuqueo filmed themselves dragging a long trail of shiny blue fabric through the sacred Pehune forest to a pool below a waterfall. For Unravel, Antonio Pichilia Quayakine filmed himself in the Guatemalan wilderness wrapped in a backstrap loom around a tree and twisting together a bright umbilical cord in reference to the ancestral. How do you say that, Prude?
I have no idea.
You said it good before, I remember.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean I'm going to be able to pronounce it again.
Tatsujil cultural practice passed down to him by his mother of weaving as a way of preserving knowledge. For foreigners everywhere, the Sudanese-Norwegian artist Ahmed Umar filmed his performance of a traditional Sudanese bridal dance topless for the camera, having upped his intake of Norwegian chocolates to enlarge his physical silhouette. You'll be going back. Did I say that?
No, you didn't say anything, Gio. You're fine.
No. Anyways. So it's like you're doing a Sudanese topless wedding dance, but you're also like eating Norwegian chocolate. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's just, does the chocolate have certain properties in it?
That's how I read that. It was like, oh, are you just doing something to make yourself look better?
Yeah. Or more, more endowed, I guess. At the Whitney Biennale in particular, many varieties of remixed neo-indigeneity were on display. Imad or Giran's paintings reimagined figures from ancient Andean folklore, such as the dragon Amaru and the great creator Virchoka, double-headed rainbow in the pastel shades and flat corporate Memphis style of millennial startups. Oh my God. You're like literally humans of flat designing traditional folklore. Like, oh my God.
That's what we do.
It's so disgusting.
We're libs.
Millennial startup Subway advertisements. Across the room, past Dala Nasser's timber and clay-dyed fabric installation modeled after the Temple of Adonis, Clarissa Tosin's video of performances by the Maya Kachikal poet Rosa Chavez and the Ixal artist Toan Fidel Burrito Bernal feature music played on a 3D printed replicas of Mayan wind instruments. 3D printed Mayan wind instruments. That's like, oh my God.
On one hand, kind of neat, but on the other hand, kind of cringe.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I wonder what Cody Wilson has to say about that one.
Well, 3D printed wind instruments. I wonder what Walter Benjamin might have to say about that.
Yeah. That literally is like, no, but he would like love that, man. Like that's like literally a mechanical reproduction for like revolutionary purposes, Mm-hmm. Rounding out the grouping was Rose B. Simpson's circle of life-size female figures made in the Pueblo ceramic traditions practiced by her mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. The statues were adorned with twine, lava beads, asha root, and hide covered in mysterious painted symbols. Pluses, diagonal crosses, columns of dashes, and spirals. Simpson described her idols as, quote, tools to use to heal the damages I have experienced as a human being of our postmodern and post-colonial era. Objectification, stereotyping, and the disempowering detachment of our creative selves through the ease of modern technology. So it's like, it's not about your tradition. It's about you. You know what I mean? It's like you found a way to make it about you, which I think is funny.
Well, I mean, isn't that part of why the artist does what they do?
Yeah, true. Yeah. But like, the idea of the artist is genius. Like the artist is imbued with their like sort of like world unto themselves. When you try to like bring in tradition into this equation, you're inevitably going to pollute it with your own identity, with your own sense of self, with your own reification and your own objectification of yourself as an artist. And so it's not about the tradition that you're doing. Those statues are about her and her experience.
It's self-idolization.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
With a poorly lapsed on autoethnographic expression.
100%, yeah. They're talismans that protect against the present. The painter Louis Fratino was one of the youngest artists to be given a substantial space at Venice. He also happened to be one of the few who is a bona fide star of the commercial art market. Like many of his contemporaries, Fratino, who is 31, works in a notably conservative style despite his progressive subject matter. Here we go. Homoerotic scenes in the style of mid-career Picasso. He works in modernist pastiche, or as the catalog puts it, quote, a visual vocabulary he synthesizes from art's history's greatest hits. He's 21st century gay American cubist. Fratino rose quickly from obscurity at the end of the 2010s to becoming a market darling of the recent boom in figurative painting. So yeah, now we have new figuration. Now like wokesters have discovered figurative painting again. You know what I mean? But again, it's a worship of the self. Really, that's what it is. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not just painting a figure. I'm painting an LGBT figure. Therefore, that figure painting has worth. Sorry. So it's like, yeah. His highest priced work, An Argument, a dreamy domestic scene of two naked men sleeping, one on a living room sofa, the other outside a balcony, which sold at Sotheby's, New York for $800 in 2022, hung at the Biennale alongside other hits like Metropolitan and I Keep My Treasure in My Ass.
Good Lord.
I wonder what that means. What is that treasure? Anyways,
you know damn well.
While modernism was a conscious break with the past, Fratino's paintings are something like a consensus conscious break with the future. Isn't that very interesting right there? Or something like a consensus break with the future. So they're not a break with the past. They're like a return to a thing that was by definition a forward thing.
We're returning to tradition, but we're just bringing the present gayness with us.
Yeah, exactly.
It becomes reductive. It becomes nothing.
But it's like you're like literally bastardizing something that was meant to be like forward facing. So it's like, it's kind of like what Paul Talk like accuses Fenn of being with the vorticists. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, you're just returning to the 20th century. Like, I mean, there's a place for it, but like,
I don't think anyone's gotten like. I mean, let's face it. In the current political moment, and even with like lib shit artists, no one is recovered from. Forgive me for sounding so like pompous. No one's recovered from the 20th century.
Right.
No one has even begun to cope with the 20th century until maybe like the sort of populist moment in the midst of the global financial crisis, and even then, not really. Like, no one has fully processed the absolute abject horror of the 20th century. We're all living in the consequences of it. We're still dealing with it. And don't get me wrong, it's fucking awful. So it's like, you know, oh, you're living in the 20th century. Well, I'm sorry, but like, we're going to be living in it for quite some time. And I mean, that's a bit of a black pill to swallow, but like the political project of any age should be trying to survive and trying to overcome the horrors of the last, you know, major conflict. And in this case, for America, the West, Europe, really the whole world, is like the global war on terror, and everything that comes really from the 20th century. Yeah. The death of the world that you and I know, or that we never even got to see. That's all there. We're all gonna have to process that.
No, exactly. But you notice how, like, after 2008, you had this like weird identitarian turn in the art world. Like, no longer can like millionaires couldn't fund experimentation. So a lot of these artists panic. They're like, okay, how can we make things sexy again? You know what I mean? Like, it's not just that. Like, I don't want to just equate everything to like the marketability of the work of art. It's more so to do with like the spiritual character of the artist in the contemporary world.
Oh, there's a deadness to it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like when it comes to like returning to Picasso, like everyone wants to paint Guernica. Like, everyone wants their version of Guernica, which in itself was like propaganda. But like, even if like, you know, I think Guernica is like total propaganda, but it was like an amazing feat in modern art for its time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Picasso mural Guernica. And it was like, it was like commie propaganda, but like, it was still a monumental work. It was literally like a century-defining work of art. But when you return to it in the service of contemporary politics and the contemporary world as such, it's like it robs it of its spirit in a lot of ways. Like it's like all these people like you see now because Trump won, and in the art world you see this as well. Like they all want to like LARP as commie revolutionaries, but their LARPing takes on this like
because it's the only aesthetic they know left.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like them talking about like John Glubb and like the death of empires. It's like they're taking like Spenglerian talking points, but it's like, oh, after the death of capitalist fascism, then we're gonna have the revolution. And then it's like, but you're talking about it in a way that some kind of like traditionalist schizo that read Gagnon when he was 15 years old is talking about civilization. But only at the end of that process isn't going to be a Caesar Augustus or an Austrian painter. It's going to be Joseph Stalin at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's like this, and the contemporary work of art is also like the art world is filled with these people, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's like, then they talk about like Luigi. This is what that measured had. Yeah, it's like Luigi, Bernie, Aaron Bushnell, and John Glubb's empires fall after 250 years. And like somehow Luigi Mangione is like the first salvo of the death of the American capitalist fascist Trumpian empire, which in itself is delusional. And what do you have like in the contemporary art world? I mean, look at the last few years. Look at how many murals were painted for St. Floyd. How many murals are going to be painted for
Luigi?
For Luigi, yeah. Like it's still.
Well, I mean, there's already been plenty done. Taking the famous Roman Catholic tableau of like the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Yeah,
they just put Luigi's face on it.
Luigi Mangione icon paintings, like they're
they're there, and as disgusting as it is. I mean, and again, and not to say that the left isn't capable of creating new things. I mean, like numerous progressives have created great works of art.
Oh yeah.
Based on like the commission of the high culture or the rich and wealthy at the time. But like, damn, you look at this and it's just like, you guys are all, like, they're the ones that are like so excited about, like Glubb and the end of empires, and it's just like, you guys sound exhausted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate that our guys
we sounded like that for years too. Yeah, we sounded like that for years too. Yeah.
I mean, we're not in any better shape in a lot of ways, and I'm capable of criticizing ourselves, but it's just like, this is for the side that allegedly has the vitality on the left. There is nothing here.
No, but it's like praying for the revolution. It's like every generation did that. It's never going to come. You know what I mean?
Like nothing. I'm not getting anything new from you guys.
No, it's like Dugan praying for like the death of the West in the
death of the Anglo.
Yeah. It's not going to happen. No, but it's like, it's weird because like you do have like these cross connections between like traditionalism, and then you also get like MAGA communism. Like, where is the MAGA communist contemporary artist? That's like, are they going to do like socialist realism, but it's like Hawes and Jackson Hinkle leading the masses towards a communist future? It's like, oh man, like there's probably someone that's already painted that. I know someone actually did paint a portrait of Hawes recently. But you know what I mean? Like there's sort of like this weird iconization of any like contemporary political saint. Like there's been like,
well, again, it's second religiousness, as Spengler would put it.
Yeah. There was also sacred heart paintings of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Well-known Jewish justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh no, totally against any form of like Christian religiosity and moral teaching. But
of course,
that's like, no, but that's what I mean. Like, there's also like, it's a very incoherent thing. And I think, when you were taking a phone call, that's what I was saying. Like, it's just, it's very incoherent. So, okay, let's move on. While modernism was a conscious break of the past, Fertino's paintings are something like a conscious break with the future. They are representative of today's culture of spin-offs, remakes, quotations, interpolations, and revivals. In this respect, the art world is not so different from movie studios, fashion houses, or record labels. New culture is made from nothing but old culture.
That is such a damning indictment.
Yeah.
Of the art world.
It's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's like with Picasso. Like that's and like you know what's another popular trend is like there's all these like art critics, like these amateur art critics on Instagram Reels. And their biggest thing is to critique. There's like these white kids, like these white guys that are doing like these like zombie formalist paintings of Basquiat, and they're like, you can't do this. You can't paint because you're a white kid. You're like a 20-year-old white guy. You can't paint like Basquiat, and that's like their big thing. Like I've seen like multiple Instagram Reels of this, but it's not the painting itself. It's almost like they know that they're like these white kids. They're probably like frogs. And they're trolling, but it's like the discourse around a young white man painting like Basquiat is the real thing, the work of art, not the art itself. The art itself is irrelevant. It's like the discourse around the work of art is the thing, is the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Fertino's new work for the Biennale, we were told, carries an emotional weight that feels urgent, unveiling an additional layer of political response to the social climate queer people are facing everywhere. While Oberst's insistence on urgency came from the belief that making and discussing art was intrinsically important, the alleged urgency of Fertino's work stems from the belief that in these dangerous times, art can and should play an important role in resisting oppression. But it's hard to detect any sense of political urgency in the tasteful, old-fashioned aesthetic and aspirational settings of Fertino's uniformly agreeable scenes of bourgeois gay life. Wow, that's so it's like the Will and Grace thing where it's like we're going to depict them as like normal and bourgeois and upper middle class. And was it Will and Grace?
Yeah.
That show? Yeah. Cosmos and Miscanthus is a still life of flowers in a vase, and below them, like fallen petals, some Polaroid nudes. April after Christopher Wood, which borrows in composition from Wood's 1930s painting, Nude Boy in a Bedroom, depicted a naked painter in his apartment, the balcony door open to the trees in the garden. Wine, another painting, warms a busy restaurant dining room with a half-drunk amber glow. Celebrations of identity made in such deeply traditional styles are progressive in content but conservative in form. They offer a detourment of cultural appropriation by trying to atone for the sins and omissions of the past with a series of art historical pastiches. Canonical art remade by artists with minority identities, figurative artists of the past piecing together ideal bodies, took up motifs from the Bible and from mythology and history, crafted portraits of the ruling class, captured close likenesses, and conjured figures as emblems or expressions of the spirit of their age. Today's trending figurative painters make images of themselves. Once we had painters of modern life, now we have painters of contemporary identities. And in the fact of those identities, not the way they are expressed, that is understood to give value to our art. And this is something that I talk about in my book. You have painters like that Rosetta, I forget her last name, or you have like Kenda Wiley, where like it's like they're taking like European art motifs like from Delacroix or from like Poussin, but they're like, or they're taking like biblical scenes, but it's like we're just gonna paint black people in them.
Yeah.
Like Joan of Arc is now a black woman. Like that's literally the artwork. So let's skip to the end here because we pretty much get the point. The whole article is fascinating, but we're sort of like running out of time. Where's the scaffold pipes, Arsenal shipyard. I heard a low hum coming from. Oh, here we go. There you go, Prude.
What makes these artists great is not that they are foreigners, but rather that their visions are so foreign. They are self-taught outsiders who do not neatly fit into any high art or folk traditions. Santiago and Rember Yuharkarni's imagery derives from indigenous folklore, just as Maku's Alligator Bridge mural does. But while the latter is rendered in a childish, generic style, the White Heron clan painters combine the mastery of technique with great formal experimentation, conjuring feverishly inventive beings that grow out of and recede back into their paintings' energetic, patterned surfaces and structurally confusing dream spaces. Each shows us scenes from another world entirely in a highly developed style that is entirely their own. All four of these artists have committed themselves to their very weird singular visions, which are rendered with a palpable intensity that fills their crowded images from edge to edge. They create strange, dark fantasy scenes of violence, terror, lust, and perversity, the kinds of repressed and unspoken human desires that have appeared in art for thousands of years, but which are, for the most part, no longer welcome in the galleries. You can tell by looking at their works that they are searching for something else. In the 90s, when I was a student at a Christian boys' school in Oxford, the art teacher showed us a video of Viennese action.
Yeah, here you go.
Of Hermann Nietzsche's The Theater of Orgies and Mystery. As I remember it, the participants were naked, wrapped in white sheets, soaked in the blood of cows they had sacrificed, while performing rituals in their commune in the Austrian countryside, accompanied by music, singing, dancing, and feasting. That's how I came to understand the idea that modern art is transgressive. And the performance of the Orgy of Mysteries there was nothing to do with personal identity or imparting information. They were rather attempts to leave the social norms and the Apollonian rationality behind to embrace the Dionysian chaos and the hopes of achieving catharsis. Artists have gone from trying to destroy realities into the days of the datists and to attempt to reassert it and restore order today. But it is far too late. Consensus reality is gone. We are blessed to live now in the West in a strange world without common sense. As fact grows stranger than fiction, we should embrace the surreal and try harder to imagine more outlandish fictions. We might begin by accepting that we are being lied to all the time, that most of what we hear and see is an illusion, misrepresentation, or performance, and that's fine. Life has, in many ways, become a fiction. Reality is vanishing under its own representations. We are suffering from collective delusions. We are teetering on the precipice of the real, with a multiverse of fantasy spinning out beneath us, and that's okay. That's fine. Reality is gone, and the art crowd keeps trying to recover it, claiming, oh, we can find it again. We can hold on to it if we just keep exhibiting ceramics, if we just keep making paintings, but we cannot. The unreality of the present moment should be a boon for artists and all who deal in the imagination. I don't particularly care to have my awareness raised. I'd rather view art that tears open my consciousness, that opens portals into the mysterious. I like art that the most when it doesn't mean a thing, or otherwise when its beauty or strangeness transcends the subject. Stop making so much sense. Art should do more than communicate. It should move us. It should make us weep. It should bring us to our knees. It is, along with music, the purest expression of the human spirit. It is an important part of what makes us human, the most important part, and constitutes a continuum of yearning passed down the centuries that can be felt in every great museum or Renaissance chapel. Art is often best when it is absolutely deranged. We are irrational, incoherent beings, and artists and writers should embrace this once more. If you believe that artworks cast spells, then you should use that magic for a greater cause than propagating a polite, liberal American sensibility or evading the effects of modern technology. You are free to dream. You are free to dream anything, to build different worlds, to whisper enticements in many ears, to try and destroy reality. These are prospects that artists have dreamed of for a century. There is still so much more to imagine.
The unreality of the present moment should be a boon for artists. So we might begin by accepting that we are being lied to all the time. Life has always become a fiction. Reality is vanishing under its own representation.
We just read that.
No, but okay. What is the response that contemporary artists that are basically selling their own identities? What would the response be to that? What would they say? What was the thing that Herbert Marcuse said about the work of art in that one essay? He said that, oh, by the way, you're just escaping reality. And that's not revolutionary, and that you're living in a cloud. And that actually, by you doing that, that's deeply reactionary and hateful, because how dare you escape into creation and fantasy instead of perpetually edging and gooning yourself to the plight and suffering of marginalized identities. In other words, contemporary leftism, if anything else, is a Hegelian form. I know it's James Lindsay, but like it's a form of recognition politics to be supremely recognized all the time. And lack of recognition is a form of spiritual death to the activist artist. To not recognize themselves in the other, or to not have themselves being affirmed in the consciousness of the other, is sort of deep black pilling maw hole that they can never escape from. And that's why they hate you when you don't do that. When you say, actually, I don't care about your suffering, I don't care about your identity, I don't care about your unique lifestyle, that is a mortal wound that they can never recover from. Because it's the demand of recognition in the other. It's something that Common Phil said many years ago. He said, when it comes to like the Decepticons, if you know what I mean, he said, like, instead of trying to change yourself to conform to normative reality, it's the Herculean task of trying to change reality around you to accept yourself. It's like the total inversion of like any sanity, in other words. But for a time it worked. I mean, now people are questioning it. But their response would be something that Herbert Marcuse said in his one essay. That, oh, actually, the work of art is just like a form of imagination. It's a palliative. It's a way to escape reality. It's creating a virtual world that you can escape to ignore the present and to ignore all of your exploitation and, you know, capitalist realism and so on and so forth, etc. But the problem is, and this is what my book talks about, if you do that, then when it comes to the work of art in contemporary politics and the politics of identity, then you can only sell it by making it into a form of kitsch, into making it into a form of mass appeal, into creating a virtual world in which your identity is always affirmed no matter what. And so that's why you always have to keep this form of affirmation in the work of art that gives itself over to a kitsch reality. And so you're not like necessarily gripping with the intense realities of oppression. You're just creating another fantasy. But in this fantasy, all of those things go away because the world has to conform to your identity. It's like the imagination of someone who has a deep crisis of faith in themselves. And so that's what a lot of people in the contemporary art world, and also they're selling their own identities, by the way. They're selling their own oppression. But something before that hideous ghoul, Luke Turner chased her off. That's something that Diana Havas said, who herself is a Cuban woman. She said, in a way, you're selling your own oppression to other people. Is that not a violation? Is that not a form of capitalist realism unto itself? You know, before Luke Turner chased her away with his ridiculous Antifa tactics and his daddy's money. So it's all just a fucking jerk off at the end of the day. You know what I mean, Prude? Like it's you're trying to sell yourself, but in the act of selling yourself, you have to realize what a terrible bad faith process it is. But you ignore that by selling your work of art, by giving it this like weird activist morality car wash. So you know what I mean? So it's like that's what it is. It's a morality. It's like, you know, it's like that line from Casino. It's like we do to people with their money what Lords does to humpback and cripples. We sell their fantasies back to them. You remember that line in Casino?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's what it is. It's a morality car wash at the end of the day. Because you're realizing you're just selling your oppression to millionaires. And it's like, anyways.
I think to some extent they know that they're selling out. But yeah, hey, fuck it. Gotta get the bag.
We all have to get the bag, exactly.
Speaking of the bag, it's time to get to the wonderful part of the show where we answer questions and other comments made by the audience through their generous donations through YouTube Super Chats, PayPal, and Entropy. The show is supported by viewers like you, so be sure to donate now as we answer your questions and your commentary, as you truly are the third co-host of the show, and as I slowly realize that my wagey ass has to get up in the morning, so let's hurry up and get to the questions.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah. Owen Zaleski posted another DHN.
I know. I'm not a fan. Sorry,
Owen. I like it. Anyways, let's go to the Entropy ones first. My PayPal link is also below if you want, a direct donation. But I highly encourage you donate to Entropy because they take less of a cut. So let's go from lowest to biggest. Our good friend Bolero393 for $5. Gio, this is for Chris Hassler. So Chris Hassler asked me if I read Ivan Illich's book. What's that book called? The one you covered with Dimes yesterday.
Oh, On Resistance to Evil by Force. I
haven't read it, but I should. His book in education is also fascinating. And then we have Abe Olish Libtards. Abolish Libtards for $5, who is Owen Zaleski, by the way. Hello, gents. Hope you're having a great day. I love it when you guys discuss art. And speaking of art, I hope you both enjoy the DHN art I posted. I will retweet it.
Now I just feel like an asshole, but you know.
Oh my God. I disappeared for 2 weeks and I already have competition for DA's most artistic autist. God bless. Well, thank you, Owen Zaleski. You always will have a special place in our heart. And so here's the comments that are made on Entropy by Jackalope. The Italians thought they didn't need artillery Stalingrad they left it behind in Hungary. Or that they were Germans. Then Oswald Chugler said,
I like that name.
Oswald Chugler, I would believe the same thing about homework in the locker, but I lasted until grade 11. Also, do you have dyslexia? I have a form of like math dyslexia. Also, I have terrible penmanship. Like I can't write like straight or coherent to save my life. And they say that's a form of dyslexia. So, but Jackalope, you know what's funny? I actually had a great uncle that died in Stalingrad. He was fighting for the Italians though. Because, you know, the Italians and the Romanians are basically just cannon fodder. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't fight in the winter. You wanted Italians to fight in the winter in Russia? Are you kidding me? So, yeah, my grandfather's brother, he was labeled MIA, but he probably died in Stalingrad. Let's be real. Anyways, so then we have Seneca, our good friend Seneca, for $10. Missouri lore, the Mormon War. There was a Mormon war in Missouri too.
Yeah, it kind of was all over the western borders of America at that time.
Yeah, I know there was a huge one in Arizona. Missouri lore, the Mormon War. The Mormon War started in 1838 on August 6th election. Mormons showed up to vote in Clay County's first election, only to then be told that they were, quote, no more allowed to vote than, I can't say that word, than black people. Oh my God. Oh, the Danites then started a riot, which led to the Battle of Crooked River and extermination EO. What's EO? Extermination.
Executive order.
Oh. You mean the federal government wanted to exterminate the Mormons?
The federal government actually went after them earlier as well because they had basically deprived a town of its constitutional rights by burning down a press house that was publishing a newspaper that was against them. Yeah.
I know that the Mormons were heavily persecuted. Like, for example, they had to escape to the hills of Utah and Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah. Donald Trump gaming total Mormon death. Oh my God. No, the federal government in America literally had a total Mormon death policy. That's insane. That's insane. Anyways, man, I didn't know that. I knew that they had wars against the Mormons, but they actually like officially declared an extermination order against the Mormons. My typing teacher was married to David Koresh? What? Is that true, God's dominatrix? Oh my God. See, Digital Archipelago, we bring out all sorts of people. You know what I mean? Anyways, let's move on. That's crazy. So Sam153 for $15. Roger Siegert Sneed for Christ Sir. Thank you, Sam153, you're a good friend. And then we have, who else do we have here? We have Charlie Mackey, our good friend, for $20. Good evening. I hope you're both well. Thank you, Charlie Mackey. Then we have for $25 by Jackalope for $25. Let's hit the goal, as Ethan Ralph would say. Can we hit the goal? How much would I have to donate to Gio to explain the Warhammer 40K warp and psychers from a youngin perspective in a video?
That would take you a while, Gio. I would recommend your usual rate.
Probably $100. What is the warp and psychers? Warp and psychers.
This is why it would take Gio a while.
In Warhammer 40K, the warp is a realm of psychic energy that gives powers to psychers. The warp is known as the immaterium. Psychers are people with psychic powers that come from the warp. They can use their power to perform feats like reading minds, controlling storms. That's basically like the collective. That's like the new sphere. That's like, I could do that. Can we hit the goal? So thank you. So now we're going on to the YouTube ones. So here we go. Our good friend Hugo Gloss for 20 Mexican pesos. Which I believe is like what? Not even $5 American. Love the new thumbnail. Well, I mean, both our currencies are going to get hammered. So, thank you.
Might as well trade amongst each other.
Might as well. You bastard! Like it's.
Oh yeah, I have control over current fucking treasury policy.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I know. It's just, Anyways, Ave Demigod for $10. The ultimate question of Orthodox versus Catholic. Which would sanction the creation of American Sardaukar? What's that? Sardaukar. What? Sardaukar.
It's a Dune reference, Gio.
It's a Dune. Oh, we're elite military force of the Pardish Empire. Oh, wasn't it like a theocracy in Dune or something like that?
Oh my. With regards to the, I don't know. I would presume probably the Catholics would.
Yeah,
just because they've had more military orders than the East.
Yeah, but a thank you, Ave Demigod.
It took me a second. I was like, wait a second, I know this.
Yeah. An Aramaic discourse for $5. The chapter of the OGC brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
Oh man, the day you ever see one of us accept that sponsorship, please take us out back and shoot us.
Raid Shadow Legends sponsor.
The only way you'll ever see me do that sponsorship if they'll let me shit on it the same way that
Count Dankula does.
Count Dankula or Internet Historian shits on their sponsors.
Yeah. Anyways, Bill Phosphorus Knight for $2. I'm surprised that Tony Blair Institute wasn't there. Well, they probably have their own money. They're funded by MI6.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have USAID money.
Yeah, probably. Let's face it. Yeah. They probably get funded by MI6, though. Let's be real. Like, it's, Anyways, our good Irish friend Seamus O'Blaine for $5. Sorry, £5. Super sticker. And he sends another super sticker. Or, sorry, he sends another one for $2. is Gio ketchup based? Is Gio is ketchup based?
I have no idea what that one means. Sorry, Seamus.
What is Gio ketchup? I mean, ketchup's good, you know. I mean, it's all right.
I like it with fries.
Yeah, there you go. And $2. Okay, I'll do it. Get John Doyle on next stream. I don't know.
I could ask him.
Oh, I thought we were gonna have dimes next stream.
Well, we can, but I mean,
I don't know. That kind of would attract bad.
I could ask him. I'm not opposed.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. And Sundin for 564 for $5 Canadian. So is that a reference to Matt Sundin? The square root of 9 is 3. Is that true? What? Square. It's 3. Why is that a joke? I'm not getting the joke here.
You just said that you were retarded at math like an hour and a half ago, and he tells you a basic point that the square root of 9 is 3.
I had to Google it. Oh man, this is not good.
This is topped the episode when Gio said he didn't know how to ride a bike.
People still remember that.
I still remember that. Some guy made a whole bunch of AI art of a frog pushing a man in a fez on a bicycle.
Really?
Yeah, I have those saved.
Can you throw it up?
Yeah, I'll find them and throw them up, or I'll send them to you on Telegram.
Geometry.
So true, Seraphim Goose.
Math doesn't care about your feelings.
Math doesn't care about your feelings.
Can we hit the goal? The goal is everything to Ethan Ralph. The goal is life and death itself to Ethan Ralph. It determines if he can eat a torta that week. The goal is a spiritual mission for Ethan Oliver Ralph. Anyways, thank you, Sundin. And our good friend V.A. Jackson. For what is it? For $5. The left got third worldism and the right got chudyard. The moral lesson is don't nuke your brain with ayahuasca.
So true, Mr. Jackson. So true.
So true.
Don't be a giga-fried turbo normie. Subscribe and watch the Digital Archipelago.
Chudyard Lynch. What is he doing? Is he still Twitter now?
I have no idea. I don't follow him. I don't pay attention to him.
I think I blocked him.
It's a delightful coal. I'm not going to lie, though.
I watched almost all 11 hours of that video.
Dear God.
Yeah, I know. I was doing, I think I was assembling something. I forget. Anyways, I was assembling a bookshelf. That's why. No, but I remember like listening it over the span of like 4 or 5 days. I would like listen to it an hour at a time. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to skip ahead. And I skip ahead, but then it will be like more like Kino content that he was dropping. And I'm like, I have to listen to this. This is like the Jule of Lolcow Jule of the gods. Of Odin himself. If you catch that reference to Chudyard. Anyways, Hugo Glass for 200 Mexican pesos. Gio, check out the art of my D&D Kickstarter project, The Tomb of the Lord of Hunger. You have a Dungeons and Dragons Kickstarter? So check out Kickstarter, Tomb of the Lord of Hunger. My good friend Dubs, B-Dubs on Twitter, he's also a huge Dungeons and Dragons aficionado, although he's a Gen Xer. So he was like one of those kids back in the day, you know? Dungeons and Dragons. Anyways. And for $20, Big Ben, math dyslexia, lol, okay, straight boy. Straight boy. I love that. I love that XD RAR, like that scene girl speak. Something about it, you know,
it's
just
quaint.
Yeah, it awakens
It
a
makes
primordial.
It makes me feel young again. It makes me feel like I have a crush, and I'm in middle school, and it's 8th grade, and life doesn't make sense. But boy, oh boy, is she cute? But she's also like very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
Those were good times. Actually, no, they were terrible times.
Boy, later, boy. That is obvious. Yeah, they were great times by comparison to today, of course.
Oh yeah, like I said, it feels very quaint.
But maybe Trump can bring back a golden age. He'll have an executive order to.
You're gonna get a Costco in the Gaza Strip, and you're gonna like it.
There's gonna be scene girls in the Gaza Strip. Trump's gonna mandate the.
What a nightmare!
Yeah. Do you think those kids working for DOGE are gonna get state mandated GFs now?
I think that those dudes are fucking stone cold.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just like, I don't know, man. If you're a guy that's using AI to translate ancient Greek papyri that hasn't been read in like 4,000 years or whatever, I'm sorry. I don't think that dude has got a single thought of woman on his mind. That is the guy who unironically thinks of the Roman Empire all the fucking time.
Yeah.
I hope that he finds somebody. I hope he finds an intelligent young autistic woman and he breeds like the human supercomputer, right? Like, I hope it happens. But at the same time, I don't know if he's got anyone in his life. I hope he does. I really do. But he's also like 21 or whatever.
Yeah.
He can do anything he wants. The world is his oyster. And I'm sure that if he were to ever unlock his Twitter account, Mr. Luke would just like get a flood of DMs from just like women that are like, please put a baby in me. So
the top e-girls,
the top slop of the e-girl creme de la, well, I can't even call it cream. So yeah, it would be something. But remember, Luke, be the smart guy. Keep your account locked, block all women, and help save America.
Oh boy.
Block e-girls.
They can't.
One piece of advice that was given that was true.
They can't just like throw Fox News bimbos at them. They have to like be quality autistic.
Yeah, these guys. He's smarter. I hate to break it to you. This guy's a little smarter. Actually, he's way smarter than Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah,
this guy's more than some blonde bimbo to get him titillated. So like let's just focus on.
Remember they were doing those TikToks? Those
let's cut the budget. Let's cut the budget. Let's like close the spigot. Close the spigot.
They just like threw some like what's her name, Carpenter?
I don't know what her name was or is or whatever, but they just threw some like woman who is clearly old, looks older than him, at this like 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, and it's just like, all right, you killed 3 Antifa pedos. I guess a blowjob's in order. Like,
here's some bimbo.
Like,
here's some
bimbo. I mean, like, if honestly, if we want to do the whole return to tradition thing, like, yeah, that's probably what should happen.
The Fox
you just iced 3 like lefty pedos. Like, yeah, I think that's a pretty fair ordeal. you can get a little crumb of pussy as a treat.
I love how like Fox News basically determined the taste of like boomer men. It's like basically whatever Roger Ailes found like sexy was like what all boomers, like all conservative boomers everywhere now find sexy, like the Megyn Kelly look,
She's not bad looking at all.
She didn't know bad. Yeah, of course. But anyways, Seasider for $5. I'd be interested in your sci-fi reviews. What books are you thinking about looking at? Well, that Welcome to America by Walter Kern is, I'm probably going to read that soon. So, anyway.
Oh man, you should make Gio read some.
Holy
really
crap!
Shit.
Oh, jeez.
No. I suffer.
Oh my god, look at this one.
Bring it up.
Okay. No. You'll see.
I know.
So Robert Weisenfield for $4.99. Gio, what does Trump need to do to Canada to uncancel Don Cherry? Well, I don't know. Like, Don Cherry's getting a bit old for TV broadcasting, but he does have a podcast. I think he runs it with his son. So, all
Trump would have to do would be say something positive about Don Cherry.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you could get Peter Polyev to say something nice about Don.
Pierre Polyev is going to force Sportsnet and CBC Hockey Night in Canada. He's going to force the firing of that backstabbing traitor, Ron McLean. And he's going to bring back Don Cherry. We can only hope. Yeah, I can't watch like I try to skip the middle, the intermissions. It's boring. Anyways, for £2 by Seamus O'Blaine. I was sending chat questions, ask them the meaning.
Oh. I'm a fan of that, though. I'm a fan. Is Gio
based? That reminds me of Dilbert 2 by Chef Boyardee, where he, in like his Twitter, like the fake Twitter, he goes,
deserves the Mearsheimer stare. Is ketchup based.
Yeah, Shrek is piss. Remember that one? Shrek is piss.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. Why do I remember these things? Just kill me.
And we have on Entropy for $3 by Abolish Libtards, which is Owen Zaleski. Gio, and this is on all caps. Gio, you can find your bike lessons, knowledge of math, and the cure for your dyslexia if you just check your DMs. Check your DMs. Also, please do art stream. Check your DMs. So,
I'll check your DMs. Check your DMs.
And here's the final super chat. I was not anticipating this. Honestly, he did not have to do this. And Patrick, I hope you're as generous to Prude next week. But it's in Canadian, so I don't know how good I can feel about this because
it's Canadian. You live in Canada. Why don't you just be generous and kind to the fact that people want to give you money?
Exactly. But Patrick Kehoe, how could I'm trying to think. Should I do this in like a Ethan Ralph first? Like, for $100! Woo! From Patrick Kehoe, our good, amazing friend. I believe he also has an art criticism book that's going to come out soon. So we definitely will read it on the show when it comes out, Patrick. But I believe he also has a Substack. If you look at Patrick Kehoe on Substack, he writes a lot about the work of art. So thank you so much, Patrick. I greatly appreciate it. I love all of the support that you beautiful people give us every week. And it's, we've been doing this for almost 2 years. And
it'll be 2 years this summer.
Yeah.
Insane.
It's insane. Yeah, some shows go on for like years and years and years.
How long did you and the other guy go?
Almost 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the podcast thesis of how long Gio keeps co-hosts will be tested this summer.
Yeah. $100, bitch! 5-star days!
It's an uncanny, like your Ethan Ralph impression is uncanny.
Yeah. 5-star days! I would have tolerated Dick Masterson going off in a moo costume and all the sex parties and degeneracy, but he just didn't call me to the Barbie Mansion. He didn't call. We hit the goal. That is coming, Xander. I'm booking the next flight. August 28th, San Diego. August 28th, San Diego. Gio's Ralph Male impressions improved since rehab. Oh my god. Oh man.
When the time comes, Gio, and like you get in a little more shape, you gotta audition for some money to do the Ethan Ralph docudrama.
I thought you were going to say like the Keemstar boxing match.
No. I mean, hell, I'd endorse that.
Ethan Ralph has like lost every single fight he's ever been in.
But you would win.
Yeah, I would.
Imagine some like skinny like VTuber prick that you just like beat the shit out of on like a mat, and everyone's just like, "Oh man, I think this like Canadian killed that guy." And then you're just walking away and like, do you have anything to say to your fans? And then you just do your Ethan Ralph impression.
We hit the goal after I beat the hell. Okay, I'm not going to say anyone specific, but I have a certain art critic in mind on YouTube. Gio needs to do an Ethan Ralph versus PPP fake interview where he does both voices. I love when PPP goes, Destiny exposing his penis. Because you have to realize that the voice that PPP uses comes from an old Canadian YouTuber called The Hockey Guy, who has since had a schizophrenic homeless breakdown. So it's like, I remember one time him and Worski were like watching old Hockey Guy videos, and Worski's like, whoa, that guy's like literally you. Like, that's the voice, you know? Oh my God. He can't reach that pitch. We're at the top of this sector, boy. Man, I love that. I love when he says we're the top of the sector. Anyways, the Hockey Guy still does this weekly power rankings. Oh man. When are they gonna interview a Mama? Oh, don't even joke about Mama JF. Don't even joke about that. That's bad. Anyway, so we will be next week. We may be reviewing one of these like weirdo, like 2000s New Age documentaries with dimes. This guy, he lives in an Earthship house and he's a sovereign citizen. And this was filmed in like 2009. So it's gonna be a wild stream. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, Prude, what do you have out this week?
I'll have a new video essay out this week on Theodore Judson, and then hopefully have an essay. I'm pitching this essay to a couple of magazines, but if not, it'll go on the Substack, and it's about ChatGPT and sort of this game theory of governance with executive orders.
Nice. And I might be releasing the Fortisax in an interview on Content Minded this week, but we'll see what happens. So, yeah, this has been a great stream. And hopefully, you know, if Dean Kissick is still listening to this, please come on the show. We'd have a great time. As we always say, God bless. Goodbye. See you next week. Too sweet.
See you, gents.
All right.